Say like 65. It's been a little frustrating, to say the least.
Good evening. Can we take our seats, please? Okay, it's 6:02. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Manitou Springs City Council for October the 7th, 2025. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. And the city clerk is out tonight. I believe she had a family emergency, so I will go ahead and call the roll. Councilor Fortune,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson,
Here.
Councilor Shada, Councilor Weatherholt,
Present.
Councilor Wolf,
Here.
Councilor Chandler has an excused absence. She is at the Climate Summit, and the mayor is also present. Before I call for the approval of the agenda, we've had a request to postpone item H1. That's the second reading hearing of ordinance 1825. That's the one that has to do with permitting. There's some confusion with that, and I suspect a number of you are here for that. Denise, would you like to, you had a comment you want to
Yeah,
add?
I would. Thank you. Yeah, I request that item H1 be pulled from the agenda until further notice. The purpose of this ordinance was intended to apply only to streets and to public right-of-ways, which is why it was placed under Chapter 12. However, there seems to be some confusion that it may impact other areas, which was never our intent. I would like to work with our city attorney to clarify the language of the ordinance. Additionally, I want to thank the residents with whom I've had the opportunity to speak about this ordinance with, as well as council members who brought their concerns to my attention, and all the residents who expressed their concerns in a variety of ways. This is how democracy should work, and I appreciate that in Manitou Springs, democracy is still respected and alive. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Mr. Parker, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I'm just happy to work with the city to make any adjustments to narrow the scope. I'll talk to Denise about it when the meeting's over.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. And as Denise said, this really affects streets. It tends to, basically it has to do with utilities work. So most of the time, this is not your simple working on a deck or something at home. This is more like having a front end loader and a backhoe tearing up your sewer system, which hopefully that won't happen to you. But if it does, we need to just clarify this. But anyway, delaying it will not cause anyone a hardship. It won't cause the city any problems. So that would be a thought. So I would ask council to take that into consideration. And a second point that I ask council to consider is the order. Tonight we have it's G5 G6. It's resolution number 1425. It's the resolution regarding ballot issue 2A. And we have people in the audience who do want to speak to that. So they will have that opportunity when we bring this up and discuss it. So I would ask council to consider moving item 6, the resolution, up to first place under business, make that G1, and then preserve the order. Otherwise, that gives those folks a chance to speak and not have to sit through the earlier part of business. So with those two recommendations, I would seek approval of the agenda.
I move approval of the agenda as the mayor has outlined.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll give that one to Michelle, second by Councilor Weatherholt. Let's vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we will push on. The next item is public comment on non-agenda items. And I would mention that if you want to speak to the resolution, we will be addressing that probably fairly shortly. But if you have a non-agenda item you'd like to speak to, this would be the time to do it. And I don't have any forms indicating that anyone wants to do so. Okay, with that, we'll move on to our consent calendar. We have three items on the consent calendar tonight. The first is a request to purchase Axon Generation 4 body worn cameras for the police department. The second item is approval of a general services agreement with Front Range Arborists LLC for Black Canyon open space fire mitigation. And the third item is approval of the September 16, 2025 City Council regular meeting minutes. And it just occurred to me, since I was absent, I believe Julie was also for the September 16th meeting. I'd like to pull that off and have that addressed separately since I won't be voting on it. Well, item 3, that's the September 16th meeting minutes. Generally, if council members not been present, we
Right.
abstain from voting.
I'd also like that we move F2 to like something like G7. Okay, which is to talk about the approval of the arborist agreement.
Well, we can talk, we generally discuss that, you know, anything we take off the consent calendar, we usually discuss next, but if council no has objections, you want to take that and discuss it as the last item under business?
Yeah, I'd just like to move it there, just
Okay.
because I think it's all these other things people are here for.
You want to take
Yeah.
off? That would leave us with simply the first item, the body camera for the
F1.
police department, F1. So if there's no objection, I'll seek a motion to approve item F1.
I move approval.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Let's vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, great, thank you. And as council didn't seem to have any problem with making F2 the last item under business, we'll discuss that at that time. Next item then would be the September 16th regular city council meeting minutes. And again, I'm going to abstain since I wasn't here.
I move approval.
Second.
Motion second. Let's vote.
Motion carries with 2 recusals.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on. And so our first item of business, we've moved up the resolution number 1425, a resolution of the city of Manitou Springs urging the registered electors of Manitou Springs to vote yes on the ballot issue to seeking approval of a 9% excise tax increase, generating 2.5 million for the city at the November 4, 2025 election. Can I just see a show of hands of who all would like to speak to this? I only have 2 sheets. We've got, okay, so roughly 10 people. What we do is we allow you each 3 minutes, which would be fine. I'm going to take the first 2 people in the order that I received their forms. We'll go ahead with take the public comment portion first, I think. You have 3 minutes. We would ask that you not repeat yourself. So if somebody else has come up with an idea and you just want to endorse that, you might say, I like what so-and-so said, but then give us any fresh ideas. I mean, it makes the meeting move a little faster, and it tends to not be quite so repetitious. And if you have points, you may oppose someone, you say, I disagree with so-and-so, that would be okay. This generally works pretty well, and it moves the meeting along reasonably well. Okay, so let's go ahead and start off. Ted Johnson, you've got 3 minutes. When you come up, I need everyone to give us name and address, or you can have your business affiliation if you want to do that. And you have 3 minutes. We typically don't respond back, but there will be some discussion here. Welcome, Ted.
All right. Can everybody hear me? All right. Ted Johnston. I'm the general manager for the Manitou and Pikes Peak Cog Railway. Address is 1903 West Kucharis Street, Colorado Springs, 80904. Good evening, everybody. I'm here this evening to speak against ballot initiative 2A and encourage the voters in Manitou to vote against it. I'm primarily against this initiative due to the triple tax it will impose on the attraction businesses in town by raising the amusement tax from 5% to 14%. I'm also deeply disappointed that this initiative was put together behind the scenes with no communication between council and businesses it affects, including mine, which pays approximately 90% of this tax. The COG and the city have enjoyed a partnership since we rebuilt the railway between October of 2017 and May of 2021. And then through the subsequent reopening of the railway. Part of that partnership included improving communication between the COG and the city. When the city asked us for us to improve communication with our customers, we did. When the city asked for us to remove 6 parking spots for a new bus shelter, we did. When the city asked us to acquire and operate a parking lot outside of city limits and provide private shuttles, we did. When the city asked to spend $500,000 that we had agreed to on parking on a restroom facility, instead, we agreed to it. When it looked like the Ruxton project might move forward, my team was asked to participate in multiple project meetings so we could be a good partner during that project. We did. All of this was done at significant expense to our company. Now the city faces a supposed $4.6 million budget deficit that nobody has yet to actually show any proof of. And instead of reaching out to the businesses and being a good community partner themselves, council has placed a triple tax on the ballot with no input from the businesses it affects. If this triple tax is passed, it could ultimately lead to visitors passing on Manitou for anything, including the COG. This will not only result in no amusement tax, but also no sales tax in the retail or restaurants and or lodging tax. That will hurt everyone, including residents. Therefore, I encourage everyone to vote no on 2A. Let's work together to review the city's budget needs if they even exist. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Next, Leanne Wolf. Leanne? Yeah, okay.
Good,
yeah,
did that better?
And if you could have your mouth about 3 inches away from the mic, that helps.
So my name is Leanne Wolf. I own the Flying W Ranch. My address is 3330 Chuckwagon Road, Colorado Springs, 80919. I am incredibly grateful for the Broadmoor and for the COG, for the prosperity they bring to the Flying W Ranch. I'm absolutely positive that each one of you are incredibly grateful for the prosperity that the COG brings to Manitou Springs. I'm in disbelief that you would impose this incredible, egregious tax on it's like you're biting the hand that literally feeds you. You're biting the hand that feeds you. Okay? Every single one of the residents in Manitou Springs are direct recipients of the prosperity that the COG brings to Manitou Springs. I'm blown away that you would do this kind of a tax. And when I hear Ted talk about no communication, hello?
Thank you. Next, Jack Demoletti. I'm sorry, Demoli, I'm sorry. My apologies. I went to school with a bunch of Italian kids too. I should have been able to get that.
My printing sometimes is maybe not the best. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jack Demoli. I'm the president of the Pikes Peak and Manitou COG Railway, also the Broadmoor.
Could you move the microphone just
Sure.
closer?
My address is 1 Lake Avenue in Colorado Springs, 80906. Mayor Graham and City Council, I'm here to talk about the second oldest business in Manitou, almost 140 years in business. We employ about 100 people during the peak season in the summer. We pay an amusement tax, we pay sales tax, we pay property tax, and our customers are the customers that shop, dine in your restaurants, and support Manitou. I'm really opposed to the Manitou triple tax. This makes no sense. I'm here to speak against it today, and I will say this. Without a doubt, this tax will discourage visitors to the greater Pikes Peak region, including Manitou. The hospitality, tourism, and travel industry is under attack right now. Everything is not on a increase. It is very much on a decline, whether that is hotels, the attractions, or restaurants for that matter. This is just not about the Cog Railway. It's also about the Iron Springs Chateau, Manitou e-bikes, Cliff Dwellings, Adventures Out West, and just a few other businesses that are impacted by this, including festivals. The tax gives this city council a clean slate to increase up to 14% if passed without any type of guidance, without any type of permission for the future. There's no sunset provision in this. This is simply a opportunity for you as the city council to increase the tax at any time up to 14% without sunset. I'm repeating that for a purpose. The other scenario is, quite frankly, it is targeting businesses that support this community. It is apparent the city rushed to this process once again and made a hasty decision. There's been no transparency, only 2 city council meetings, no communications with any of the businesses that I just mentioned. I would urge the voters to vote against 2A. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. Robert Hefner.
Thank you for having us here tonight. My name is Robert Hefner, owner, operator, Manitou Cliff Dwellings, 10 Cliff Road, Manitou Springs, 80829. Appreciate you guys having us here today. So just want to open up and say thank you.
Rob, could you move the microphone just a little closer? Thank you.
So Manitou Cliff Dwellings has been open for 118 years this summer. We're one of the staples of Manitou, just like the Cog and Miramont Castle and some of these guys that have been around for quite a while. And once again, just like seconding what Ted said, no communication. We learned after the first meeting that there was even going to be this triple tax imposed. So I'm pretty disappointed in any lack of communication thereof that we've had with City Council for this. Tourism is the lifeblood, financial lifeblood of Manitou. Like the tourists or hate the tourists, they are what makes Manitou thrive and makes Manitou what's unique. So a couple weeks ago, we had the Pikes Peak Marathon and Ascent. Where do you think those people came from? They come from all over, out of state. Some people from overseas to run that marathon. A couple weeks, we're going to have Emma Crawford races. You're going to have 12 to 15,000 people line the streets of Manitou. Where do you think those people come from? They're not all residents. They're tourists, folks. They're tourists. So what are we going to do when we have a sign that's hanging up out front of Manitou that says, "Welcome to Manitou, welcome to the highest tax in the state of Colorado"? Whether it's a double tax, a triple tax, 11%, 14%, this is going to be the highest tax in the state of Colorado. Welcome to Manitou, folks. You guys are going to lose business. Those people, when they come into town, what do you think they do? They go to our lodges, our restaurants, our shops. They spend that money. They stay with us. They enjoy this town. They are going to leave this town and they're going to spend it in Colorado Springs, Old Colorado City, or Denver, or Breckenridge, or somewhere else. So it is not going to be just a tax on tourists. It is going to be something that hurts every single one of us. Thanks.
Thank you, Rob. Let's see, next, Doug Price.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Doug Price. I am the President and CEO of Visit Colorado Springs, the Convention and Visitors Bureau. My address is 515 South Cascade, Colorado Springs, 80903. In the spirit of not repeating what has been said by others. I am going to simply say that when we were first made aware of this excise tax increase, we got with our board of directors and said to them, this is an issue that is impacting 6 of our members and only 6, and that is being a burden that's being put on them in a community that we support every single day. Manitou Springs is a very important part of the tourism experience for the Pikes Peak region. And you all know that, and we have a lot invested here in Colorado Springs. This is the first time I've ever seen our board come together unanimously to oppose an excise tax, an issue like this. And when they really looked at the facts and said, when there's a burden, it is shared amongst all, not just on the backs of 6 businesses that have a ticket price already that is, you know, considerable. But to take this up to, as you heard, the highest in the state of Colorado, we as a board have voted unanimously to oppose this. So tonight, what I'm asking is for council members to vote no on this resolution and allow the tax to be defeated, then work together with the entire small business community on a path forward. Tripling the tax on just 6 business owners isn't fair by any standard. The business community stands ready to help the city in this hour of need. Please vote no on this resolution altogether. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Cobble? Greg.
Good evening. Greg Cobble, Manitou E-Bike Company, Manitou Springs, 1207 Manitou Avenue. I'm going to just echo everything that's been said. I can't say anything more that you haven't already heard. I'm against the entertainment tax. I think the tourism is the lifeblood of this town. And there's a threshold as to what people are going to pay when they're online looking at their attractions and their vacation. And I know once that threshold hits a certain point, there's going to be a percentage that naturally just fall off. Last year, for example, with my little business, comparatively speaking with the other guys, we were down about 8% with our rental, and we have a short season to make that money. We already fight the weather, you know, when it rains a lot, I don't rent bikes. And to think about raising my prices, it's only going to do one thing. It's going to lower, you know, the business I get. So again, I echo what the other fine gentlemen have said earlier, and I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Nina Davis?
Hey, how you guys doing? My name's Nina. I live at 12 Cherokee Road, Manitou Springs, Colorado, 80829. I walked here. I am a local business owner. I run the Manitou Comedy Festival, which is why I am so joking and funny right now. This is, in my professional opinion, maybe something that could have used a little more workshopping. I would like to echo the sentiment of the previous speakers and leave it at that, and urge you to consider the effect that this might have on local performance artists. We've heard a lot from attractions today, and as a stand-up comedian who's been working at this for a long time, what I get paid is often from ticket sales. And Manitou Comedy Festival is one of the only comedy festivals in this country who pays their performers. And it is not possible for us to pay our performers at the level that we do without ticket sales. And I do believe that this tax would affect our ability to sell tickets. During the third annual Manitou Comedy Festival this year, we had 4 different people purchase tickets to airplanes in addition to tickets to the festival to watch somebody perform on that very stage. I feel very connected to the city, and I think you guys are all really cool, and this is a very hard thing to do. I don't have very much else to say that's not a joke to somehow justify my position here. And I can make all of you laugh, but I assure you, this amusement tax is not amusing to me. That's it. I think we'll leave it at that. Yeah, think about the local artists and the message this sends to performance artists who are hoping to get paid for their work, because we are swept up in this too.
Thank you, Nina.
Thank you.
That's all the forms I received. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this? We've got, okay, if you'd all raise your hands up. Hi. Let's take the gentleman here at the green shirt first, and then Doug, and then Peter, and then we'll.
Good evening. My name is Tom Haggard. I'm the owner of Santa's Workshop. My address is Santa's Workshop, North Pole, Colorado, 80809. I'll echo what everybody said. Obviously, the tax does not affect Santa's Workshop directly, but anytime that you, in today's environment, when you raise the price of people enjoying themselves, there's going to be resistance. And I've never seen this summer more people trying so hard not to spend money. When they get out of the truck and they got a $70,000 truck and their hands literally on their wallet when they walk in, like, I'm not tilting this wallet out any way that I don't have to. There was a nice article today about people are going to Europe vacation because it's cheaper to go to Europe on vacation than it is to vacation in the United States because of resort fees and tipping. So people are not stupid. They're watching their money. They don't want to spend any more than they have to, and that's why I would oppose this. I think it's just a target on the tourist, and that's never a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haggard. Mr. Edmondson?
Douglas Keithley Edmondson, 15 Keithley Road, Manitou Springs. Obviously, I'm here in opposition of this tax initiative as it's currently worded. I think that it needs revisitation, as has been said by others before me, but the reason why I'm here tonight is because of the resolution itself. You as a body has voted to bring this before the voters of Manitou Springs. That's your job. It is not your job to influence the vote of the voter. That's coercion. This resolution should be struck from the agenda altogether. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Peter? Peter, you're gonna, oh, different lineup, okay. All right, anybody else want to speak to this? Ma'am?
Hi, I'm Jennifer Cobble. I live in Manitou at 1207 Manitou Avenue. I did not come here prepared, so I apologize for being nervous. Yeah, I apologize. I did not come here prepared to say anything. But this thing affects me coming and going in my life. It could affect me, and tourism does affect me where I work and at my home through my husband who owns Manitou e-bike. It literally puts food on our table and pays our property taxes. And I just need everybody to think about this before they vote. I am definitely against it because I do feel like it's not properly shared among a bigger group of people. 6 businesses does feel limited and somewhat attacking. And sorry, I'm just really nervous. And I in my home, when and I'm not saying you guys are, I'm not as caught up as everybody is, but when I know that I'm concerned about my budget and my income and my comings and goings and things like that, I check my balances and my finances, like where am I spending money? How am I spending it? What return on that investment am I getting? How does it affect my quality of life and my families and my friends? And I look at every single thing associated, and it might be overthinking. And I'm not going to say or assume that you didn't do that, but if there are opportunities, have we checked that? Have we looked at negotiating prices for things, doing things less often, looking for volunteers for services to offset costs? I just think that there's a lot of possibility for creativity. And I just want to encourage that if we haven't done enough of that. Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm Martin Lays. I'm general manager at the Cliff House. This proposed tax obviously doesn't directly affect us at the Cliff House. However, I have been with the Cliff House for over 23 years now, and seeing the cost of touristing in Manitou Springs these days and how it's risen over the years, I'd be opposed to this. I fear that potentially it could lead to an increased lodging tax, another thing that will essentially keep tourists from maybe considering Manitou as a destination point. I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess last call. Yes, ma'am. Come up, please.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Patricia McPherson. I am the Executive Director of Pikes Peak Region Attractions. I've been with the association now for 10 years, and my concern is not just for the 4 organizations that are part of my association here in Manitou Springs. My concern is both as a parent, thinking about when I'm traveling. I have 3 children. There's 5 of us. When we're traveling and looking at something like this, 14% would deter us from coming. I am concerned that a lot of people, a lot of those visitors that I speak to every day, they're not going to understand that that is an amusement tax. They're going to think that it's sales tax. They're going to think that that's going to be the tax that they're going to pay at lodging places, that it's going to be across the board for shopping. They're going to pay that at the restaurants. So that's my concern, is people aren't going to understand where this tax is and where it goes, and it's going to keep them from spending in other places. People also don't understand where the line is between Manitou Springs and Colorado Springs when they come to visit. If you don't know, I mean, most people in Colorado Springs don't know where that line is, you know, unless you are very familiar with Manitou Springs, you don't know where that is. So I think this is also going to affect those businesses on the west side of Colorado Springs as well. And we're going to drive tourists away that are coming to, I mean, Pikes Peak is our anchor for everything that we do. And if we're stopping them from purchasing a ticket at the COG, we're going to lose lots and lots of visitors across the board for all of the region. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Each time I ask to see if there's someone else who wants to speak, I see fresh hands come up, so I will ask again. I guess not. Okay. All right. We will conclude the public comments on this now. And council I guess if you want, council, I can read the resolution and then we can discuss it. I think probably council has had an opportunity to do so, but it might not hurt to read it. So if there's no opposition, I'll go ahead and do that. And then we can do some discussion. Resolution. A resolution of the City of Manitou Springs City Council urging the registered electors of Manitou Springs to vote yes on ballot issue 2A, seeking approval of a 9% excise tax increase, generating $2.5 million for the city at the November 4, 2025 election. Whereas on Tuesday, July 29th, 2025, at a community meeting, the Manitou Springs City Council presented several scenarios to compensate for the loss in revenue from decreased recreational marijuana sales. And on Tuesday, August 19th, 2025, the council unanimously agreed to ask the voters of Manitou Springs to increase our income from our excise tax by $2,500,000 annually. This includes a request to allow council to raise or lower the tax without voter approval, so long as the rate does not exceed 14%. And whereas we, the Manitou Springs City Council, recognize that the loss of ongoing marijuana sales tax totaling approximately $4.3 million annually must be managed. This represents over 30% of our annual budget. We will lose or drastically reduce some necessary city functions such as snow removal, emergency medical transport, or our swimming pool. In addition, we would likely lose funding for fire mitigation and essential maintenance and replacements to our infrastructure if we do not generate additional income. And whereas an excise tax is a tax on our city's amusement or a tax on ticket sales and is a tax that has not increased since its inception in 1972. Cities do not have a variety of funding options. The Manitou Springs City Council chose not to increase property or sales tax. And whereas excise tax is primarily paid by our tourists and will not negatively impact residents' personal expenses. And whereas this ballot issue will appear as ballot issue 2A on the November 4, 2025 coordinated election ballot. And whereas grave economic uncertainty will rain havoc on municipal plans and operations. Long deferred capital improvement plans will be sidelined or abandoned. Overdue replacements and upgrades to the city's infrastructure will become an ever increasing risk for the safety and quality of life for our citizens. And whereas we, the Manitou Springs City Council, are reaching out to the citizens of Manitou Springs to explain our position and demonstrate our full support for this effort. Now therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Manitou Springs, Colorado that Section 1, the Manitou Springs City Council fully supports the passage of 2A. Section 2, the City Council urges you to vote yes on 2A in support of our community and in support of the future of Manitou Springs. Section 3, this resolution shall take effect immediately upon approval and adoption by the City Council. And that's subject to a vote tonight. Council, anyone have comments, questions, remarks? Michelle?
First of all, I want to thank you all for being here tonight, taking your time to come here. It is quite obvious that probably 100% of you are opposed against 2A. I want to thank all of you for those of you that have spoken, especially the Pikes Peak Regional Attractions, Visit Colorado Springs. On Tuesday, July 29th at the community meeting, I was hoping this room would be twice as full as it is tonight, but it wasn't. Councilor Shada and Councilor Johnson put together a presentation on things that could possibly be lost or reduced services throughout the city, including snow removal. I understand that we as a city council have to discuss if this resolution is striked, like Doug Edmondson mentioned. I, for one, am not for 2A, but I do understand that we do have a budget meeting coming up in November, and I would urge all of you to be there amongst your your residents that live in your neighborhood. As I've sat on city council, my term is ending on January 6th. I hope I did the best that I could do well during these last 4 years. And I hope that the things that I voted for or against will stay going forward. But I know that a new council can change whatever we vote on tonight or in the future. I'm very disappointed in the council that voted to have marijuana here in Manitou Springs way back when, not thinking that here we are today on October 7th, trying to figure out where we are going to find $2.5 million annually. So that is all I have to say for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Anyone else? Nancy, please.
Yeah, I feel that we're damned if we do, we damned if we don't. No one wants to do this, but I'm terrified of losing the tourists, as you've all made very clear tonight. I'm also terrified of losing a lot of the services that our community, to include many of you, depend upon. As I've gone through and been reading all of the input pro and con for this, I've been very concerned about some of the misunderstandings out there, some of which are that was even mentioned tonight. And I know that, you know, people don't follow this on a weekly basis like we do. Some of the things are that we have tightened our belt. This year, we reduced our budget by over $600,000, which is no small thing. We've allowed, 6 positions to go open within our staff here. Again, no small thing. We have been planning for years. I've been on council for almost 8 years now, and every single year we have discussed, what are we going to do? You know, we know that this is coming, so we have been thinking about this. We have been planning for this. But you can't put anything really into effect until it actually happens, because you can't ask for a tax when you don't need a tax, and we didn't need this until now. And I'm all for other ways of achieving revenue. I think that we could have done, I think that we should do more in economic development, for instance. And we've not but we've been spending our priorities on infrastructure, deferred maintenance on our infrastructure, which is a lot of that marijuana money has gone to deferred maintenance, which has been critical for us. So again, I just want to say that I will vote for this resolution tonight, because we're damned if we do, we damned if we don't. So we'll put it out to the voting population, and they will be the deciding factor in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Julie?
I also appreciate how many people have come out tonight. And there has been community engagement, but I guess you missed it. But I'm glad you're here, better late than never. And I just want to start by saying, if the facts supported the assumptions of the statements we've heard tonight, if the facts are true, that if you raise the price of a ticket, even by a little bit, that nobody's going to come anymore and the business will fold and Manitou will go bankrupt. If that were true, I would also be against this. But I understand that the COG, for example, is required to provide statistics to the state every year, because they're a railroad, about their ticket sales, the price of their tickets, their profits, the number of passengers that go on their trains. And the facts, according to the state website, indicate that in 2017, when the COG closed, the tickets were $32 average, and there were 306,374 passengers that year. Then when they reopened, we look at 2024, fast forward to 2024, just last year, they doubled the price of their tickets, doubled, not a 9% increase, a double. And then the tickets are average $63. And you would think, oh my goodness, based on what everyone has said here tonight, nobody's going to go ride the COG anymore. They've doubled their price. Well, the COG ridership went from 306 grand to 363,746 people who rode the trains. That was a 20% increase in ridership within just a few years. And there was also an increase in the millions of dollars that the Broadmoor COG was able to net in their profits. So, and that doesn't even include the $20 fee that they get for the parking lot. So based on those facts and those statistics, I'm looking at, wow, we go from 32 to 63, practically double, 99% increase. And what we have here is an increase of 60,000 people who came to the COG and rode the train. Now, if this passes and it's up to 14%, it's not a total of 14% always, but even if there is a full 14% tax as opposed to the 5% tax they have now, the COG ticket will go up by $6.03. When the COG ticket increased by $31 and it caused 60,000 more people to ride the trains, I am not concerned that we're going to have the sky is falling and the COG will go bankrupt and nobody will come to the COG anymore, because a $6 increase is nothing compared to a $32 increase. I also want to mention, and I do have concerns about the smaller businesses, that the math shows that the e-bike ticket will go from $35 to an increase of $3.15. That's less than buying a cup of coffee. The Iron Springs ticket will go up by a whopping $2.62. As you all know, that's less than buying a cup of coffee. The zip line tax will go to $5.85 increase. That's about the price of a cup of coffee if it's like a latte. So I am not convinced that these businesses will go bankrupt and that nobody is going to come anymore when they have to pay. The cliff dwellings will be an extra $1.15. I don't think people are going to stop going to the cliff dwellings because it's going to cost them an extra $1.15. So I just want to ask people to look at the facts instead of making these wild assumptions. And the other thing is that I've heard, oh, we didn't have public engagement. Yes, we did. And there were some folks here, but not many. It was all advertised the way we always do. I've also heard, oh, there must be a different path forward. I haven't heard any path forward that's going to make up for all the money we're losing from the marijuana money. Someone here this evening mentioned maybe we could get more volunteers to do city services. So that's not realistic in terms of the millions of dollars that we're losing because of Colorado Springs legalizing recreational marijuana. I've also heard people say on the street, well, we shouldn't increase tax because we think that the city has been wasteful with all that marijuana tax money that they've received. And if you're not following the boring city council meetings week by week, and if you're not reading the over 200 pages a year of the budget book, I guess you wouldn't know where that money's gone. But as Councillor Fortune just mentioned, we have spent a lot of money on infrastructure, boring things like water lines, filling potholes, undergrounding the utilities that can cause fire in town because of the electricity if there's a lightning strike. And all of these things are expensive. And even though we've gotten the benefit of so many millions and millions of dollars, especially helping with flood recovery, you always have to pay a copay. So if you don't have your copay, if you don't have what they call, it's a copay in the medical insurance world, but in city council world, they call it matching funds. But if we don't have the matching funds to pay anytime there's an emergency, or we want to get some free federal money to help with all of this deferred maintenance and infrastructure that is so decrepit and old, then we're not able to get the millions that are offered to us. So we've used a lot of money with our copays to try and get the town so that it's not crumbling. The other thing, before I shut up, is the up to, and that was, I thought that was a good suggestion that Mayor Pro Tem suggested when we were deliberating. The up to, the increase up to 9% more than what we're charging now for tax means that as we monitor how things are going, we're allowed to say, oh, let's not charge the full 9% increase. Let's just have it be a 4% increase because we see it might be hurting certain businesses. We're allowed to say, oh, let's make a modification and pass an ordinance that the first $1 million worth of ticket sales will be just the plain old 5% that it's been for the last 53 years. So there is flexibility built into this. And that's why I'm in favor of it. And for those of you who disagree, I respectfully understand that we're allowed to disagree, and this is a democracy, and I appreciate that you came up here and told us your opinions.
Thank you, Julie. John, did you want to make any comments?
Yeah, Julie quoted some numbers that were directly out of the public utilities record. And I guess I don't want to repeat what she did because I think she articulated things pretty well. I guess I'd like to add one additional thing. It was rather interesting to me while Julie was talking, and I'm completely aware of the numbers she was talking about. So for grins and whistles, I went to the Cog Railway website and I tried to book a ticket. And the tickets are now up to $78.99. So back in 2018, when they closed, okay, the average ticket price, okay, was, as Julie said, $32. What was interesting to me was that when we talk about the COG being a great partner to this community, and yes, indeed, they have collaborated with the city per the incentive agreement to help build restrooms at Hiawatha Gardens and et cetera. I don't disagree with anything that Mr. Johnson had said. But when I hit checkout, I was immediately taken to a web page that directly competes with Manitou Springs. And in fact, I was offered zipline experiences in which the lowest price was $184. In fact, the price went all the way up to $387. And I had to go through that gauntlet to basically check out for the Cog Railway. None of these zipline adventures are in Manitou Springs. So I just wanted to make that as a comment for the record. As far as profitability goes, okay, we can also look at the PUC records for the Cog Railway. And back when they closed, they were making 28% net profit. I'd like to know whether any of your businesses make 28% net profit. In 2024, they reported to the Public Utilities Commission that they made 32%. So the fact that there isn't, if there is some concern on the part of all of you that the COG tickets would go up a whopping $7 if council decided to exercise the full throw of this 9% increase, that would only increase the cost of a COG ticket by $7. So here are all these numbers on the COG checkout site. $78 to do a COG ride. Okay. 50 cents that you have to actively remove from your checkout thing so that that does not go to some forestry restoration, wherever that's going. Okay. Then you've got to go through their zipline gauntlet of $184 to $387 for zipline experiences that aren't even in Manitou Springs. Okay. And we're talking about an increase, if it was a 9% increase in tax, of $7.11. So I'm not convinced that essentially there isn't pricing, okay, flexibility on the part of some of these businesses. And yes, I am concerned about some of the smaller businesses. And one of the ideas that I've been thinking about is that council could possibly do an economic incentive in which allows smaller businesses in Manitou, and we could set that amount that would allow them to come back in for a economic rebate of their incentive increase that council would levy. And I know we haven't had a chance to talk about that, but I do know that is something that I've talked with some of my colleagues in council about. And I do thank you for all coming tonight. And I agree with our city administrator that this is democracy at work and that we dialogue, we argue, we are passionate about things, okay? We challenge each other, and hopefully we can make the correct decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Natalie, did you?
I don't really have anything to add aside from, Jeff, could you weigh in on whether or not this resolution is, I want to say, legal or allowed? I know we discussed it
Yeah, you know,
before.
it's legal. It's basically the one thing, the main thing that a city council can do to express their opinion on a ballot issue or a ballot question under the Fair Campaign Practices Act. So you don't have to pass it, but this is your one opportunity to take a position one way or another.
Thank you. I
welcome.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yep. And I do thank all of you coming out here tonight as well.
Thank you. And again, thank you all for coming here. This is, this is not really a fun chunk of government business. I think for the last, 6 to 8 years, we've been very aware that marijuana money has been important to us. We've used a lot of it for capital improvements. We've been able to get a lot of things done. It's been the specter hanging over us that someday we would probably lose that, and the day came. I guess the feeling I have now, I feel that our situation is somewhat analogous to being on the Titanic, except we've got some distance. We've got a reserve. We don't have a reserve that's going to take us too long into the future. We've probably got 18 to 24 months if we're lucky, although we see with inflation, even that's getting eaten up. So we need to do some things to be prepared. I think the resolution gives city council an option to increase revenue. There is a key point to that, to the resolution of the ballot issue is that the rate could go up to 14%. It doesn't have to. Council would have the ability to adjust that as could be needed. And from council's position, it's not always easy. I mean, this summer, the week before the 4th of July, we had a sewer line collapse down in front of Savelli's. A lot of you were probably inconvenienced with that, or certainly your guests were. Twice we had to shut down the lower stretch of Ruxton Avenue on, I believe, a Saturday the first time. I mean, and it was the height of the COG season. The incline was busy, and of course, locals needed to get up there too. We're seeing those infrastructure collapses because we have an old city that's had its infrastructure neglected. The longer we go without addressing these things systematically, the greater peril we'll be in. The thing I worry about the most, and Lieutenant Mike Willie is the reminder, is fire. I worry a lot about fire in Manitou Springs. Fortunately, it's been a rainy season, so if we can just get through the fall, we'll get to winter and that'll be okay. There's a lot of challenges we have. And I realize this is challenging for those of you out there, and small business is a challenging environment to be in the first place. So I think council has some empathy for that. By the same token, our job is to take care of the people of Manitou Springs. That's 5,000 people. And on a summer day, that's our visitors as well. We have to have police and fire and infrastructure. We have to basically provide the essentials of a city. For us to lose 30% of our budget is a pretty sobering situation. So that's part of the perspective as I see it. If we didn't have to do this, I think we would be just delighted. Everybody could go on and be happy. Again, this is something we've dealt with at least twice a year. We've had day-long budget sessions, one in the summer, one in the fall, to figure out what we could do to build up our reserves in case the crash came. At the same time, to tackle some major projects, and we've gotten a lot of things done. And some of that we've been really, staff has been really good at getting grants. In 2023, we got over $5.1 million in grants and partnerships. So it's not like we haven't tried. We are, and one of my fears is if we get into a time of economic uncertainty, we're going to lose the momentum we've had in trying to tackle some of our big problems. So I do support this. If there was another way, I'd be happy to try that. If I'm sure that the lottery would work for us, we'd all be buying lottery tickets up here, but it doesn't. And we've got 18 to 24 months from the deck of the Titanic as I see it. So appreciate your listening. I appreciate your participation in coming out. And I think we all understand some things. Every one of us has seen the cost of inflation, the cost of insurance going up, fire insurance in particular. We see all these things. We've seen the difficulty we've had in getting and maintaining labor, the cost of labor going up for all of us. I empathize with that. It's not easy. And that's kind of how the situation is for the city. So I appreciate your listening. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve this resolution.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Let's vote.
Motion carries 5-1 with Counselor Weatherholt as the dissenting vote.
Thank you. To announce that again, it was 5 in favor, 1 opposed. That was Counselor Weatherholt. Thank you. Also mention for anyone who came a little bit late that the hearing that we had scheduled, hearing H1 regarding the permitting is being, we're going to continue that at another time. So if you came for that, we'll address it another time. Yeah, let's go and take a 5-minute break.
Yeah, we do a 48 night. So we work 2 days on, 8 hours, and it's offset. Yeah, okay. There's days where it's like, this stuff's kind of rolling, but, you know, it's kind of, with us being so small. Yeah. Yes.
It sounds like that.
Hates that. Ships. Yeah, I wouldn't say all of them. Like super hang. It's like our five. Our core like 5 years. I really should. Oh, yeah, yes, we're seeing the biggest, ever built. Yes. Yeah, most of the, yeah, most of the day stuff. We can see. We all know how to operate that. There's how they do it. Yeah. It's, that first one. Yeah. Oh, my God. Then I realized. Yes. Can I say? They can go to, I could be totally wrong. They could go to. I don't guess. I think they like, yeah, or. But it's like a max of 3. So y'all. I think they are. Seems like they'll get like fully staffed. Something. Or different. Yeah. How long have you been on this? Okay, but now you're like in charge or chair about the ball. Because here is 4. I can't. 10. That's right. That's a lot of fun. It's more connected. I'm sort of going. All right. Yeah, guys. Okay. But I'm a lot more careful about. It has also it's time to get big. I've enjoyed it. How do you guys have a budget? Do they just allocate to citizens did those votes? Think sunset. So that it was dollars at about $4,000. Okay. The purpose of that also required, so we don't spend that. Yeah. So that rolls over. So right now the reserve is about 400,000. Read it again today, Mark. Collective. That's the estimate for this year. Sales tax on certain. Been spending money last year. Every once in a while, I got what's that? And then every once in a while, I'll be for usually those purchases. Like those are saying, okay, those are usually business from both. Yeah. You gotta have that. That's where the money. Oh, yeah. How many things they want to so. Those were like. Yes. And Paul Arthur House is very active. Yeah, that's very. All house. They're just coming on board. Your point is, next to you. I get that. Yeah. But my goal, my job, I think, actively or all lost, all happened, I said it was froze a little bit. And then they did this gate, eating, so I was successful with that. People had. It does take a bit of time. I'm glad I'm not working Friday, I spent about 4 hours. Then following up on the list. Sales to Chile, Ross. I'm like. What other places? Yes. One is with the city. Yes. That's one thing. I mean, you would laugh. I had unfortunately so I just told him. We just run that special. They're gone, or they walk the front. He said, yeah, but what's different? Three parts of their 40. State. Great conversation.
I am.
We could take our seats here. We'll get started in a few minutes. Okay, yeah, we've got a couple minutes here, but we just want to sort of gravitate back to our seats.
It was an easy.
Okay, if we can get started again, we'll get back to business. So the next item on the agenda would be consideration of appointing Keith Harper to the City Planning Commission. And I believe we have both Mr. Harper and the Planning Commission Chair, Alan Delwich, on Zoom. So Alan, Keith, can you guys hear us okay? Kristen, should we?
Yeah, I can hear. It's fine.
Is that Alan?
That is, okay, there I am.
Okay, and Keith, I think is.
Yeah,
somewhere-
he's in the audience.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. My apologies.
No, I mean, he's in the Zoom audience. He just needs to be promoted to be a panelist.
Okay.
Hi, yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, great. Well, the item before us is considering appointment of Keith Harper to City Planning Commission. Alan, would you like to make some opening comments and introduce Keith?
Sure. Yeah, I've met with Keith. He's been to one of our meetings, so maybe watched one online too, but he's a long time. I think he said he's lived in Manitou all his life.
Yep.
And he basically passed my #1 test for planning commission, that he understands the role of the planning commission. You know, the fact that we look at the land use and development code and make our decisions based on that. We don't make laws, et cetera. And that's always the #1 thing that people have to understand if they're going to be on the planning commission. And so he passed the test with the flying colors. So should turn it over to him and let him speak.
Great. Thank you, Keith. If you want to just give us kind of a quick introduction, and then we may have some questions for you.
Sure. My name is Keith Harper. I live at 222 Crystal Park Road, Manitou Springs. I'm a lifelong resident of Manitou. My roots run deep. My mom graduated from Manitou High School. I met my wife and married my wife. She graduated from Manitou Springs. Kids all went to Manitou Springs, uncles, aunts. So I have deep roots here, and I really want to do something for my community. I feel like it's time to take care of Manitou.
Great, thank you. Well, with that, I would open it up to questions or comments from council. Do we have any? Julie?
Keith, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I sure can.
I just want to make sure. So as you probably know, the Land Use Development Code was finally updated last year, and it's better than it used to be in terms of being more understandable, but it's still so lengthy. Are you willing to, after you look at staff report, to actually look at the code and read the laws and make sure that you're applying the laws, the facts to the laws, and to do that kind of somewhat tedious work as part of your role as a commissioner?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay, well then I'm going to vote yes.
Do you want to make the motion?
Is there
Well, I
other
just wonder
discussion?
if I was going to give the other council members an opportunity to ask questions or make comments. If not, it looks like a motion would be in order.
Then I move to approve and have Keith Harper be appointed to the Planning Commission.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Weatherholt. Any further discussion? Let's vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
Great, thank you. Well, Keith, you're now a member of the Manitou Springs Planning Commission, so we appreciate you stepping forward, and I hope you find the work enjoyable and rewarding.
Great. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Next item be first reading of ordinance number 1925 concerning accessory dwelling units, occupancy limits for dwelling units, and parking restrictions for multifamily residential development. Fred, you won the trifecta here, I think. It's quite a bit here. You'll unpack it for us.
Yes, there's a lot to unpack. So for the record, Fred Rolandhagen, Planning Director for City of Manitou Springs. Thank you very much, Council and Mayor, for this opportunity.
Fred, could you move the mic just a little closer to your mouth there, please?
Yep,
Thank you.
absolutely. There's the discussion has been going on for quite a while, and I know the council has had discussion on this when you approved the emergency ordinance a couple months ago. So my intention is not to repeat things that we already know or anything like that, but I want to make sure that we identify the points and that I get on the record what the proposed changes are in the ordinance and what the Planning Commission recommended. So we have a PowerPoint presentation up, and I will move through it, and once we're done, I can answer any questions. So this is consideration of changes to Title 13 and Title 18. Those are code revisions to both of those regarding three things: housing occupancy limits, accessory dwelling units, and minimum parking requirements for multifamily development. And the purpose of this ordinance is twofold. It's intended to provide more opportunities to add more housing and more housing options to the city. And number two, it's intended to assure that the city municipal code is in compliance with state legislation that was passed in 2024. Next slide. So as you probably know, in 2024, the Colorado General Assembly actually passed 4 bills that were signed into law by the governor that are a matter of mixed statewide and local concern and compel local municipal compliance. These laws intend to achieve the goal to build more housing and build more affordable housing in the state. So out of those 4 bills, 3 bills apply to the city of Manitou. The 4th bill, and I will not go into detail on this, but it is in my staff report. The 4th bill, House Bill 1313, is related to transit-oriented communities. This is a big one. The bill provides regulations and grant funding to upzone areas within a city to actually increase housing availability. And this is required for cities considered to be transit-oriented communities. We do not meet the definition of a transit-oriented community, so we don't need to comply with that particular bill. The 3 bills that are left are those that we must comply with, and that's what this ordinance before you is about: housing occupancy, accessory dwelling units, and minimum parking requirements. Next slide. So very, very quick recap. The Planning Commission held a number of working sessions over the spring and summer months to consider potential code revisions. We wanted to make sure that they understood the legislation that was passed, options that were in front of them, understand impacts to potential ordinance, potential code changes, then also to review draft code revisions. We also provided the Planning Commission with a legal memo from our city attorney, which is also in your packet, which talks about options that the city council has for complying with the law. The Planning Commission also invited the Housing Advisory Board, and the Housing Advisory Board participated in a couple working sessions and provided their input on this on these particular code revisions. The Housing Advisory Board also submitted a letter of support for the draft ordinance, and that is also in this packet. Planning Commission, as I said before, reviewed potential impacts of ADUs, potentially where they could be located in the city, where they may not, where they possibly would not be located in the city, depending on the zoning and other development restricted areas. And then they reviewed draft language.
I'm not being yet.
So I'll just go right into what the changes are. I will try not to read it verbatim, but we'll start with housing occupancy limits. This is related to the first bill. The changes that are proposed are very simple. We're just changing the definition of household, and that's it for housing occupancy limits. What it does is it takes out or removes references to the definition of household in which persons must be related by blood, marriage, adoption, guardianship, domestic partnership, or other things like that. And instead, we're replacing it with a definition which essentially identifies the definition of, makes the definition of a household related to anybody as long as the occupancy or the number of people does not exceed any kind of maximum that's permitted by any applicable adopted building codes or safety codes, that there's no exceedance of the housing habitability code or any other kind of safety code. So it's based on safety and based on what the capacity of the building can accommodate, rather than a household being based on the relation between the people who are living there. Next slide. So that's housing occupancy limits. That's and that's what's being proposed to be changed for that particular bill. Let me skip over to minimum parking requirements. That's the third one that we have, the third bill that we're addressing here. And under minimum parking requirements, we're proposing to make an addition under 18.03.8, which are the mobility requirements for development, for any kind of development in the city. Right now, it simply says all new development shall provide off-street parking and loading areas in accordance with a section, and the section identifies those parking minimums and parking requirements for different types of uses. What we're proposing is adding basically an exception to say that parking requirements for three things: new multifamily residential development, number two, adaptive reuse projects of an existing building for completely residential purposes, or number three, adaptive reuse of an existing building for a mix of users in it which at least 50% of the resulting use is residential. These three things would not apply to the mobility requirements or the parking requirements that are in this particular chapter, in order for the code to be in conformance with the bill. And what this applies to are those three things to the areas that are shown on what we call the transit service area map. The transit service area map is a map that's prepared and maintained by the Colorado Department of Local Affairs. You can find it on their website now, and that identifies where these are located. And we'll get to that in just a second. There is an exception to the exception. The city can require, the bill allows cities to require no more than or up to one space per unit for multifamily residential development with 20 or more units within this transit service area. But if we do that, we have to support it. We have to support that requirement by findings and substantial evidence showing that not enforcing the requirement will have a substantial negative impact. So if we get to that point where we're considering a multifamily development over 20 units in the transit service area, and we find that parking is really needed, then we would cross that bridge when this comes and identify what those findings are. Next slide. So this is that transit service area, and it is a bubble map that identifies areas a quarter mile around each transit stop. And so with the two bus lines that go along Manitou Avenue and El Paso, the bubbled areas is identifying that area a quarter mile from each of those transit stops that currently exist. So this is where that area would apply to. That does include the entire Urban Renewal Authority area, for example, and most of, well, I should say maybe a part of Ruxton Avenue, because the last stop that is shown on this map is not actually at the end. It's the third stop up from Manitou Avenue. Next slide. Okay, so that is for the third bill. We'll get in, now we'll go over the accessory dwelling units and what is proposed for that.
May I ask a definition question before we go on so I can understand?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you
Clarifying
help
question.
me? What is, I have to go back. Hold on for a sec. Oh, shoot. What is adaptive reuse of existing residential something, something, whatever that was? What is that? What does that mean? If if I own a home and so it's residential, what do I do to make it an adaptive reuse?
I think adaptive reuse is related to larger buildings. A lot of times they're commercial buildings and they might have been used for commercial purposes. And you're adapting the building for residential use. So, you know, if you're adapting or, if you're converting offices or some office space or something like that to residential use.
So it's non-residential to residential.
Correct.
Thank you.
So under accessory dwelling units, the slide that I have up right now is basically a snapshot of what the proposed revisions are. Number one, the revisions establish a permitted use of and regulates accessory dwelling units. So we're actually identifying that permitted use. Number two, it allows them in 3 zoning districts: the general residential, low-density residential, and hillside low-density residential zoning districts. These are the these are the 3 zoning districts where single-family dwelling units are permitted, and that's where we are required to allow ADUs. ADUs can be internal, attached to, or detached from a single-family home. So they can be internal. You can convert some inside space of a single-family unit to an ADU, like a basement or an upper floor. You can attach to or add on to a single-family unit for an ADU, or build a new building or a new structure, or convert an existing structure on site for an ADU. It does currently, as the ordinance is written, it must comply with dimensional standards for the applicable zoning districts. So it must comply with your setbacks and height restrictions and things like that. It is not subject to the density restrictions, which is something that the bill does not allow us to do. So with the requirement of, if we require 4,400 square feet, for example, for a residence or for a single family residence, and somebody wants to put an ADU on the site, we cannot require an additional 4,400 square feet to be on site. In other words, the ADU is entitled or allowed to be there because of the existence of the single family residence, as long as it complies with setbacks and height restriction and things like that. The ADU is subject to our other codes, including the Historic Preservation Code. That is something that the House bill allows us to regulate. It is subject, of course, to the Fire Code, the Housing Habitability Code, and all applicable building codes that exist. So if an ADU is proposed in the historic district, will have to apply for a material change of appearance certification with Historic Preservation Commission and receive that approval. Currently, the Planning Commission has recommended a certain minimum and maximum square footage for the ADU, and this is where the bill allows for a good amount of latitude for communities to decide on their own how big and how small they want ADUs to be. Excuse me. The bill requires that we allow at least between 500 and 750 square feet for ADUs. And so with that in mind, the Planning Commission recommended a minimum of 250 square feet for an ADU had to have at least 250 square feet, and then no more than 50% or half of the square footage of the main dwelling unit, the single family residence that's on site, or 750 square feet, whichever is larger. And that would allow us to meet that upper level in the bill, 750 square feet. That also means, for example, that if there's a 2,000 square foot home on the site, on the property, somebody could potentially build up to 1,000 square feet of ADU space, as long as they comply again with setback requirements, height restrictions, and things like that. Currently, the ordinance does not restrict an ADU from becoming a short-term rental. There was a lot of discussion with the Planning Commission on that, but Planning Commission felt that it was appropriate to allow the short-term rental regulations to apply to ADUs just like they currently apply to other residential units. And then parking, as required by the bill, we are allowed to require off-street parking only in areas where, only in places where on-street parking is prohibited. If on-street parking is not prohibited, we're not allowed to require an off-street parking space for the ADU. Unless one already exists, we could require that an existing parking space be dedicated specifically for the ADU. Next slide. So along with this study, the Planning Commission had looked at some data to understand potential areas where ADUs could be placed. So we have a couple maps here. This one, all of the parcels that are colored are zone general residential. So this is looking at just the general residential zoning district. And we did a little bit of an analysis of, for example, how much garage space or how many garages are in this zoning district, and how many residential units contain basements. These two things could, of 250 square feet or greater. So these are two areas where we could see some accessory dwelling unit space. The garage space, you can see there's only about a quarter of the residences that have garage space, but closer to half of these residences have basement space. So when you combine them both, you're looking at just over half of the residences that do have one or the other or both that could be converted to accessory dwelling unit. If you look at the total number of units in this particular zoning districts, I think we're at about between 800 and 900 dwelling units in this particular zoning district. So when you compare that to the other one, if you'd go to the next slide. The next slide is looking at our LDR and HLDR zoning districts and where they're located. Of course, they're located more on the periphery of town, more so on the east side. In these zoning districts, these are more for single-family residences, and of course, there's more garage space and more basement space in this zoning district than the other one. And so even though the total number of residences is less, there's more opportunity for accessory dwelling units to be located here in this zoning district. Next slide. So so the next couple slides are the specific code revisions that are being proposed that are in the draft ordinance. I'll try not to repeat myself, but that includes it includes a definition for what an accessory dwelling unit is. Next slide. And then it identifies under 18.04.3 residential uses, what those use standards are. And I'll just point out that only right now, it's recommended that only one ADU is permitted for each principal dwelling unit on a lot. It shows the size, no less than 250 square feet, and then no more than half of the square footage of the principal dwelling unit, or 750 square feet, whichever is larger. And then dimensional standards, identifying that ADUs shall be subject to the same dimensional standards that apply to principal dwelling units. Next slide.
Please, go ahead, Julie.
So if only one ADU is allowed per principal dwelling unit, what does it mean at the end of the last sentence of number 1 that says any additional ADUs shall be subject to the density restrictions? That's not referring to additional ADUs on the principal dwelling, is it? Additional to what, I guess is my question. That's ambiguous to me. Do you see what I mean? I don't understand that.
Yes.
clause.
Yeah, yes, I do.
But a sentence is just a clause because it ends with a semicolon, but what does that mean? Any additional ADUs, additional to what?
I think-
Additional in the city or additional at my house?
Trying to recall that.
Because first you say you can only have one.
I know, yes.
Why are we talking about additional?
I think I was trying to refer to the density restrictions. Let's see.
I think if it's referring to density restrictions, then I think the language should say any ADU shall be, well, I thought they're not subject to the density restrictions. Yeah.
That's right. Okay, I
So was that
apologize.
Sentence.
I
should be
think,
stricken?
yeah,
Or that
I think
clause?
that should be straightened. The intent of that was to be that in the general residential, in the general residential zoning district where multiple dwelling units are allowed, the intention was to clarify that any additional units are still subject to density restrictions, but they're already subject to density restrictions. So
Just take that whole thing out?
yes, thank you for catching that.
Okay.
I think we can take that out.
Yeah, thank you for explaining. Oh, Nancy has a question.
Yes, Nancy, please.
Can I ask a question about the previous slide then? It's the definition of an accessory dwelling unit. There had been reference in the legal document about RVs and so on being used as ADUs, and I don't see anything that necessarily preclude RVs or trailers and so on being used as ADUs. And I was wondering if that had been discussed or if I'm just missing something in here.
Yes, there was discussion on that. That's addressed actually in building codes and construction codes. So what we say is that an accessory dwelling unit must comply with the building code. And so and all other codes that the city has. And so as a living unit, a living unit cannot be an RV or a tent or something like that. If you're going to construct an ADU, it must comply with the building code.
Okay, Julie, go ahead.
If you address this later, then just, I'm happy to wait, but remember we passed an ordinance that says that you can't, any kind of living unit, and I think it pertained at the time specifically to motels that convert to residences, especially during off-season. And one of the requirements, for example, is that you can't you can't have a living unit where the only sink is in the bathroom, because we don't want people washing the dishes in the bathroom. You have to have a separate bathroom, kitchen sink, or a sink somewhere else. Do all of those sanitation / safety type of laws apply, I would assume, to these ADUs as well?
Yes, the intention is that they do. I can get clarification on that and answer that specific question, but
Yeah,
yes.
no, I mean, the building codes that require all those types of facilities are going to apply to ADUs. Just it has to be a separate dwelling unit. It's going to have all the requirements for an actual dwelling unit. You're not going to give it any separate water service or sewer service without having all the appropriate facilities in there. So it's all covered in the building codes.
Okay, that's great. And then is it fair to assume that someone could build their ADU in the front lawn? Like I could stick a little 250 square foot ADU in my front lawn, even if it looks, yucky, especially with it being a historic neighborhood. Is that allowed? It can be anywhere on the property, I assume?
Yeah, that's correct. The way, actually, yes,
It's because we have to, because of state law. Has to allow us to do that, or are we, actually, I guess that's a Jeff Parker question.
Well, I mean,
Are we authorized?
well, first of all,
to restrict it to a back or a side yard?
that's a great question. So I'll give you a quick answer on the historic preservation district. So like all the historic preservation regulations still apply. So if that's not going to be consistent with the historic preservation status of a property, which it probably wouldn't be, it would get denied. But could you just put in a blanket prohibition for no front yard ADUs? I don't know. And I think I want to say yes, because
As long as you meet the setback requirements, right?
yeah, I mean, I think that the law basically requires that you not restrict ADUs any differently than a single family residential unit on the property. So it has to comply with setbacks, et cetera. But I'm trying to think of a piece of property that might have a big enough front yard to put an ADU in. That would
If
certainly,
it's only 250 square feet.
yeah, yeah.
And so then under
Yeah.
HPC, under historic preservation, I don't think there's any prohibitions
No, but
specifically to,
it has to be consistent with historic characteristics. So
that has to do with remodeling and stuff. It doesn't apply necessarily to new residential
no.
units on the property.
it'll apply to new construction. Like the historic preservation regulations apply to new construction.
But there's nothing that would prohibit it.
Not directly, not expressly, but I want to take a look. I'm going to try and read the part of the statute addressing setbacks and see if we could do that. I just don't know the answer quickly, but I think you may be able to. I just don't know.
And this is just first reading, right?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question though.
So, yeah, I just want that to be clarified because it doesn't seem like it would look very historic to do that unless it was an existing garage or something that's a building already there, but to squeeze in some little unit in the front yard of these historic buildings would, I think, make the historic neighborhood look not so historic anymore. It would look more like mishmash.
Julie, I think that would be something that maybe is under material change of appearance for a structure.
But it's a new structure.
I know, but if it's,
So how can you have a change of appearance when it's changing from air to a building?
I see what you're
No.
saying. Yeah.
It's just a question.
But now, new construction still has to comply with historic preservation regulations in the historic preservation district.
Correct.
Just because you're not adding on to an existing structure doesn't mean you get a free pass. So it
Yeah.
still has to meet all the guidelines. So it would be a new construction. So those regulations would still apply to new construction. But I think it's a good question whether you could just make it prohibited. So I just don't know that.
Yeah, thank you. John, did you have another comment?
So I noticed that a typical single car garage is about 240 square feet in terms of what's typical. So it appears like to me that you can take a single car garage, okay, if it is 250 square feet and convert that to an ADU, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
As long as,
Yeah, and right.
yes, that's possible.
So how does that figure into that in terms of if for some reason it was a requirement that those garage spaces be a part of the parking requirements for that zone district? Does that come under that whole thing that basically, I mean, help me with that.
So a little bit farther into the presentation, I'll indicate how we review single ADUs, which is through minor site plan. And that would allow us to look at the property to assure that the property conforms with the code, with all of our code, and that this particular change does not create a non-conforming use or create a use that's not allowed, including with parking. So we would be able to look at any parking requirements for that property through that minor site plan. And so if there's a parking requirement and the retrofit of the garage would eliminate that parking space, that we would we would require either they replace it with another parking space, or they may not be permitted to.
So I
do an
guess what I'm
ADU.
asking you is with your familiarity with Manitou zoning code, that's typically not a requirement in general residential. Do we have any zones in which the garage spaces are a part of a requirement for parking?
Not that I know of.
That's what I was going to say too, as far as I knew. So it appears like to me, you can almost literally, if you had an oversized two-car garage, you could at least ask for one ADU. Could you ask for two ADUs? In other words, two separate dwelling units, one could fit in each one of those garage spots, right? It's only one, right?
Correct.
Okay.
The way the draft ordinance is written now, you'd only be allowed one.
Okay, okay, just want to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay, Fred, go ahead, please. Well, oh, okay. Let's take Natalie's question next.
Sure. So my question too was, since this whole situation came before us to create more housing, is there a way for us to potentially, to talk about the short-term rental situation, is there a way for these to become housing, long-term housing and not VRBOs? Is that something that we could also put in this?
Yeah, so the bill does not, I should say, the bill does not affect our ability to restrict short-term rentals in ADUs. So if council wants to restrict the use of short-term rentals in ADUs, you can do that.
That is something we can do. Okay, thank you.
Okay, John then?
Yeah, so doesn't the bill have some portion in which there's like a whole laundry list of things where you have to have at least one thing that you're complying with? And given that we have ADU restrictions, we meet that requirement. You know what I'm talking about, that section?
I'm not sure. Could you?
Yes, in terms of, there's something in the ADU requirements in state code, and then they have this long laundry list that you have to comply with at least one or more restrictions in a long laundry list of things. And the way I read that section of the code is that we complied with it, given that we have ADU restrictions in place already. I can maybe go look and see where that is.
Yeah, I'm
Thank
not-
you. I'm just was wondering whether that.
Well, I think there's a laundry list of things that the city can't do and what they.
There was a
what can
laundry
do.
list that in order for us to comply with the law, we needed to have one or more from this laundry list of things. And when I read that code, I went, well, we at least comply with, we meet the requirements because we already have a restriction on ADUs.
You might be referring to where you could be, it's basically affordable housing friendly, and you get you qualify for the grants and for state assistance, perhaps, not the actual ADU regulations themselves. I'll take a look, but it's not ringing a bell, so
I was just trying to see whether it rang a bell with any of you guys, and I can go look it up because I made notes. Thank you.
Not specifically, I'm sorry.
Excuse me, just to add to the confusion, John, I think perhaps in Mr. Parker's memo, there was something about incentives that we could undertake to qualify for grant opportunities through DOLA. That's the
why
only
I'm
thing that
wondering
comes to
if
mind.
that's what is referred to, but
I don't know. As I said, I didn't mean to confuse things. So, John, if you want to check that out.
I will look it up because I think I made a note in my notes and I'll try and.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Brad, back to you.
Appreciate that. Okay, let's see. And we've gone through the current slide use standards. We went through the use standards and then under residential uses, here's where we talk about density measurements found in this particular section does not apply to an accessory dwelling unit. So that's where we're talking about density measurements, the amount of square footage that's required per living unit or per dwelling unit. It cannot apply to accessory dwelling units. Next slide. Here, minor site plan. This is where An ADU must be approved in an administrative way. It cannot be approved through a public hearing by a board or a commission or city council. And so here's where we say that a minor site plan will be required or will be the review mechanism for us to review the proposal of an accessory dwelling unit. Next slide. The other part that we are that's being proposed to be added is under Title 13 regarding service lines. And in this case, I had a conversation with our Public Works Department, Public Works folks, and because accessory dwelling units are accessory to a main dwelling unit, the thought was it's not necessarily appropriate to require a separate tap for them. And Public Works was okay with allowing accessory dwelling units to use the same service line as the main dwelling unit. And so there's an exception here that's being proposed that ADUs may extend the service line of the associated principal dwelling unit to connect to the accessory dwelling unit. However, each unit, number one, each unit must be individually metered. And also the service line must be adequately sized and that will need to be determined by the city engineer to make sure that the line is big enough to accommodate both units appropriately. There's also language in there about curb stops. That curb stops shall be installed as determined by the city engineer. This is also accompanied, if you see the ordinance, this is accompanied with a fee. The fee for the the fee for the meter for the accessory dwelling unit would be half the cost of a water tap. If in the future there's a proposal to subdivide the property or to split the property up where the accessory dwelling unit becomes a separate, its own lot and its own main dwelling unit, then the requirement for a separate water tap would be required and new tap fees would be required at that time. Next slide. Another more language about master metering indicating that ADUs must be metered independent of the associated principal dwelling unit. Next slide. And here, just as I had said at the beginning of the presentation, we did receive a letter of support from the Manitou Springs Housing Advisory Board, and that is in your packet. Next slide. And then findings and review criteria. I did in the municipal code, there are findings and review criteria for approval decisions and changes to the LUDC. And they are here, and this is what we must find that it meets this criteria. Number one, that the amendment is not likely to result in significant adverse impacts upon the natural environment, or such impacts will be substantially mitigated. Number two, that the amendment is necessary for or supportive of the protection of health, safety, welfare of the community. Next slide. Three, that the amendment is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the intent stated in the Land Use and Development Code, identified specific goals that encourage a diverse range of housing types and promoting reinvestment in the rehabilitation of the city's housing stock. Number four, that the amendment is consistent with any prior approvals, official plans, or policies that apply. And number five, that the amendment will not significantly increase nonconformities. Next.
Yeah, go ahead, Julie.
The amendment we're talking about is all of these changes and new language, right?
Yes.
Well, I don't think that's really honest under the findings and review criteria that the amendment is not likely to result in significant adverse impacts. Number one, we're doing it because it's mandated by the state. There are significant impacts. We're going to have a lot more water being used by a lot more people. We're going to have a lot more traffic trying to escape from the city when we have a wildfire. We're going to have people who die in the street from the fire because there'll be a traffic jam. there's definitely going to be significant adverse impacts as well to the natural environment. Of course, you have more buildings, more people, more pollution, more traffic, more et cetera, more water use. So I just think that's not true. I'm uncomfortable pretending that the amendment is not likely to result in significant, I don't know if we need that or why we need that, but it's baloney, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's an interesting point because you have a state law that says you shall do this. And then
Right.
you have your own internal requirements for amendments through the code that say you need to meet these criteria.
Yeah, so I think that this is an exception to the code. I think it needs to say the amendment may very well result in significant adverse impacts upon the natural environment. And we are adopting it nonetheless because we wish to comply with state law. I would feel more comfortable with that sentence. It's more honest. Because otherwise, everyone's supposed to come in and pretend that this isn't, I mean, I won't repeat myself, but yeah, I suggest that we eliminate that number 1 and change it to the words I just said. I don't know how you all feel about that, but I mean, come on. Of course it's going to have a negative impact. What was that city that just had, what was it in California where people couldn't escape because of the traffic jams, the Palisade? Yeah, we're gonna
Paradise?
get another Palisade. I mean, we already have very few ways to egress from the city. You bring in, 500 more people with 500 more cars. What the hell? I mean, let's be honest. So I object to number 1 personally.
If I could weigh in a little bit here, I get the point here. And I remember going back, it was a year or two ago, was House Bill 213. And then that one I think failed. And then what's in front of us now is basically the State House forcing regulations down our throat. And I remember testifying in one of the front of the state committees that this didn't work for Manitou. All they needed to do was to try to drive down one of our streets to see if them telling us that parking was not an issue. I mean, they didn't need to open their eyes very much. That our old water and sewer lines, that they weren't going to be stressed by potentially adding more people and more ADUs. So, I do. And my overall thinking, I mean, this is kind of an arranged marriage. The state is sort of shoving this down our throat. I think the Planning Commission and HAB and our staff have tried to come up with something that keeps us on the good side of the state and protects us as much as possible. But I really feel that the state is heavy-handed in this. It's really not their business to tell us how to manage land use in our community. I've got really mixed emotions about this. We have to do the alternative to not doing this is to have them shove something down our throat.
But I think we should do it. I'm not suggesting we shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Because I think Colorado Springs is challenging it, right? And they're in a lawsuit over it. I don't want to join that lawsuit or be in non-compliance. But I believe instead that it's very insincere and factually incorrect for us to include that number 1. And if we have to legally explain in the ordinance itself that we are violating the other ordinance we have that says you can't make laws unless it's, blah, 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 no adverse impacts, we have to say this is an exception to that. And the reason it's an exception is because we are complying with state law. I think that would be a lot more accurate. And it sounds like, so I'm not suggesting we throw the whole thing out the window. I just don't like that paragraph 1.
No, I get it. And I mean,
but we have to have, like Jeff said, we have to have something probably that explains that this is an exception to the other law we have. If we already have a law apparently that says you can't pass new laws if they're going to have an adverse impact, we're going to say, we're going to have to make an exception to that and say, except as required by state law.
You're expressing the exact reason why in Colorado, the laws has been traditionally that land use regulation is a matter of local concern. And home rule jurisdictions have ultimate authority in matters of local concern. And, the state trying to impose something like this without, a blanket rule like this doesn't take into account cities like Manitou that have unique issues where it's not a big flat place like Denver or something. So, I mean, the case law, I think, generally supports that the city of Manitou Springs doesn't have to comply with this, but
Why with it though? We got enough going on with lawsuits. I still want to comply with it. I just want to take out that first sentence and instead change the other law that we already have that says no new law can be passed unless there's no adverse impacts. We have to put a comma at the end of that sentence of whatever law that is and say, except as required by state law.
yeah, I mean,
Right.
you're dealing with a staff report, right? This is not an ordinance. It's not.
Oh, I thought he said there was some ordinance that said, I misunderstood.
The,
Still don't like that paragraph 1, it's a
Right.
lie.
yeah, the criteria that I have is in the municipal code.
Like coming from the land use code itself says any land use code changes need to meet these criteria.
Well, then that's the one where it should say, except if it's required by state law.
Right. And then, I mean, we would probably have to then bring an ordinance to revise the land use code.
Right,
Yeah, I mean, we could do that.
just to add those 5 words.
Or we could just say in the staff report that, we recognize the code says this, but it wasn't intended to apply to situations in which state law supersedes.
I guess that's cool. Yeah.
I'm just trying.
That's another way around it, so it's less hassle. So I'm fine with that, but I'm not fine with number 1. We all know that that's not true. And plus, like the mayor said, we're a home rule city. So all of our other laws should be passed only if there's no adverse impacts, but that doesn't belong here. Okay, we can move on.
I guess what I would suggest is that we let Fred go ahead with his presentation, but if Fred and Jeff, if you guys would make a note so we don't forget this issue, we come back to it and craft it a little more judiciously, given, and the rest of council may want to weigh in on this as well, but Fred, if you could pick up.
Yes, certainly. I think this is actually the end of staff's presentation. So after this one, after this particular slide, the next one is just motion language options. Approve the draft ordinance as written, or simply approve the draft ordinance with amendments, any specified amendments that the council may have, or deny the draft ordinance.
Thank you. Comments, Nancy?
Yeah, I think I'm impressed with all the work and consideration that has gone into this very, very delicate and complex ordinance. I did have a couple of comments. One is that the HAB letter, I don't believe it was a letter in support. I think it was a letter recommending things to go into the ordinance that most of which were in fact incorporated. So that's good. One of the things that I don't think was incorporated from the HAB letter was short-term rentals or eliminating short-term, not allowing ADUs to be short-term rentals. And I was wondering why Planning Commission didn't appear to have any concerns with allowing the short-term rental ordinance to cover that. Because I'm trying to think of a good reason, given that they are supposed to be affordable. That's the whole intent of ADUs at this point. Why we would want to allow them to be short-term rentals.
I think there are a number of reasons why the Planning Commission had done that. There are a number of things that were stated. That I can recall. Number one, there were some statements realizing that there are not that many places left for more short-term rentals. We're nearing the end of that cap, and so we're not going to. There's a 2% limit on the number of short-term rentals, as well as an area limitation. You can't have one short-term rental within 500 feet of another one. So there are very few places that you can add any more STRs at this time, number one. Number two, I think there was general idea of wanting to allow property owners to decide for themselves whether they wanted to apply for a short-term rental license for their ADU or not, and wanted to allow that choice to occur. And I think number three, there was a general feeling that general feeling of comfortability of the STR regulations, and that they adequately address, from their perspective, adequately address the use of short-term rentals in the city.
Okay, and thank you for that. I guess I remain of the opinion that ADUs should not be short-term rentals, so I would like to propose that to council as a possible amendment to this ordinance. Another just comment is the issue of putting the tap fees, making it 50% of what it normally would be. Again, given that these are supposed to be for affordable housing, or that's the intent of the state regulation on it, I think that that is very good consideration to reduce the costs of building these ADUs, to allow the rent to come down potentially, or for them. So thank you for that inclusion. That's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, as I know, I took a look at the legislation, and we can prevent them in the front yard. So, yep, you just can't change side setbacks or rear setbacks to differ from. We'd have to do that. Yeah, we'd have to make a revision to the
I agree with Nancy. I agree with Nancy because the whole intent here is for housing, not for tourists who want to come for the week or the weekend. And so if we're going to have all this flexibility that violates our other code requirements, and violates our home rule status, really, then we should stick with the intent and not make it broader. I knew you were going to say that about how there are currently so few places in town that aren't already taken with a short-term rental, that there's only a few spots left. And it's been so long since I was on Planning Commission, I forget exactly where those spots are. Is one in Crystal Hills? Yeah.
I believe so.
Yeah, and I don't remember, I mean, there's so few, but still, if we're going to allow all this flexibility and no density requirements and such, then let's have it be for housing and not for lodging or tourists. The other thing I just wanted to ask for clarification, when you were talking about density requirements, doesn't that also refer to how much of the land can be used for buildings? Like right now, if I'm building a house on a piece of property, there's, aside from the setback requirements and the height requirements, isn't there also a requirement that there has to be a certain percentage of the land that's saved as open space, if you will, that doesn't have building on it, right? And this law takes that away. So you could have like a building and then another building 3 inches away or a foot away, and just have the whole lot is just building and building. And isn't that is part of the density requirements that we can't impose anymore?
I don't believe so. Maintaining a certain
Setbacks.
yeah, setbacks, height restriction, height limitation, and open space, like, requiring 50% of the lot to remain open or undeveloped or something like that. Those things we can impose and are part of this code. The only thing that would not apply to the ADU is that density requirement that you have to have a certain amount of square footage for that second residence.
Oh, so our code for open, I know open space isn't the right wording, but land with no building on it, that part of our code is still allowed to be obeyed without violating the state's rules?
That's
Jeff?
correct.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's already in here?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, okay, thank you. So I don't know if we should I don't know if the presentation is over yet, but I think there are all these different things we should vote on separately,
Yeah,
probably, in
that's
terms of
what-
the proposed amendments.
Yeah, what I was going to suggest was that we do that. We address each item separately and then provide direction to Fred and Mr. Parker so that they can come back with a refined version of the ordinance for second reading. But yeah, we just about have to address each one, I think, separately. So if council, if we feel like we're ready to go through that, then let's, if we could first address, I'll say Nancy's suggestion. Nancy, you want to specify that we
The ADUs are not allowed to be short-term rental.
short-term rental. I think that's a good idea. They won't see how we feel about that. Obviously, we know how Nancy feels. Yeah, I'm definitely on that. And just one quick editorial comment. I think it was the town of Crested Butte at one time, because they had a workforce housing shortage, but they had a new development. They said each single family house is going to have an ADU. They mandated it, thinking that they would solve their workforce problem. Instead, they created vacation rentals, for the skiers. So that the law of unintended consequences needs to be addressed. It was Crested Butte, I believe. So I think Nancy's point is excellent. John. Michelle? Okay. Okay, if you would. Yeah, you're right. We do.
I mean, we can discuss it and then just put them all together in one motion at the
Okay,
end.
okay, that's good. We'll just, an omnibus motion. Pre-sense is okay. So we've got the first part there. Okay, Julie, if you would articulate your points.
Yeah, I want to see if we have consensus on eliminating under Titles 13 and 18 Code Revisions, paragraph 1, that says the amendment is not likely to result in significant adverse impacts upon the natural environment, including air, water, noise, stormwater management, wildlife, and vegetation, or such impacts will be substantially mitigated. I suggest we eliminate that and instead replace it with the sentence that says, and I might need Jeff's help with this, the amendment may very well result in significant adverse impacts upon the et cetera, blah, blah, blah. And then at the end of the close paren, however, we are implementing the amendment or promulgating the amendment as required by state law. Will that work, Jeff?
And that's gonna just go in, like the staff report or where, because like that criteria comes out of your land use code. So I guess my suggestion would be we could just add a whereas clause to the ordinance. It wouldn't go in the code. It would just say, whereas the city council has reviewed the approval criteria and including, this is actually section 7 of your land use code, and determines that it does not meet that criteria, but is being approved because city council wants to comply with state law or something like that.
What he said.
Okay, I'll draft it up better, but it'll go as a whereas clause in your ordinance.
Okay, can we refer to that as Julie Wolf 1?
Yes.
Okay. So
Then I have Julie Wolf too.
well, I thought you had a second one. Do
Yeah,
you? Okay, let's.
It's the first one I raised at the beginning where there was that part of a sentence that ended in a semicolon that talked about additional ADUs. And I think we were told it would be fine to just completely eliminate that, to strike it. But I should find where the heck that was. Or did you note it, Jeff, where that?
Yeah, I actually was just gonna write it down, but I didn't put the section there to me. I can find it
Let's
quickly.
see
Yeah,
if
it's
Yeah,
18 it's section 4 of the ordinance. And it revises 180437, subsection B, subsection 2. Oh, no, that's not the right one. That's not it. Sorry. I had it.
There was under that place, under under number, that last sentence, I think, was what we wanted to
Yeah, that's what
strike.
it was. It was 1, not 2. And
And
so
so-
any additional ADUs shall be subject to the density restrictions. That gets deleted.
So that's Julie Wolf 2. We strike that sentence. Let's see, do we have, okay, Julie Wolf 2, you're okay with that? I'm okay with that. You know,
I'm
so-
okay with it if it's true. I mean, as I read it, I had come up with the way that it worked, but I may be completely wrong and I may have been just looking for a way for it to work. So right. No, I understand. I understand what you're talking about. So are you convinced that that sentence is superfluous?
Yes, it's a redundant sentence because the code already requires that for any other residences that would be allowed by the code.
Okay. All right, then I'm good with it. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we're good. We're all good with Julie Wolf too. Okay, is there a Julie Wolf 3? Okay, all right, thanks. How about Michelle? Do you have any? You're okay with it?
Julie Wolf 3, Denise just reminded me. No ADUs in the front lawn.
Okay, the front lawn. Okay,
I mean, I'm fine if there's a conversion. Well, I'm not really fine, but I don't think we're allowed to. Well, that's a Jeff question. So if there's a home, a residence with a garage in front, because we do have some of those, are we allowed to prohibit, and I hate to take that garage away because, parking is such a bear.
Yeah.
But are we allowed under state law to prohibit the garage, if it's in front of the house, from being converted to an ADU?
Yeah, the way the statute reads is you can't vary the side and rear setbacks to make them different for an ADU than for a residence, but you can vary the front setback. So, I mean, when I was thinking about how I was gonna draft this, I was gonna basically draft it to say the front setback for ADU shall be no closer than the rear portion of the primary structure. Then you would not be able to put an ADU anywhere in the front yard, beside the beside the structure. It'll have to be in the backyard. Because you're basically setting the front yard setback to be what you think is appropriate. And that would, so you couldn't add on to a garage that way unless the garage was in the back.
Okay, then that would be Julie Wolf 3.
We need to have some language that says.
Yeah, so Jeff will come up with a language for second reading, but the concept for us to discuss or see if we have consensus or not is that if you have two situations that could arise, if you just have a front yard and there's no garage there, you can't put an ADU in front of your house. Put it in the back. The second application would be if you have a garage in front of your house, you can't turn that into an ADU. You still have to keep it as a garage because it's in front of your house. And that way we don't lose parking, off-street parking. So those are my two.
okay, so there's two parts to Julie Wolf 3.
The side yards too, because Jeff mentioned too that it should, in other words, say that all ADUs will be in the backyard.
If you wanted to be all the ADUs have to be in the backyard.
Behind the
Which
primary
should be no
residence.
closer than the main rear wall of the primary structure. Then you would basically have them in the rear yard.
Yeah, I think that would be better to keep them all in the backyard.
Okay,
Because otherwise I think it would look horrible.
yeah. Okay, so that's Julie Wolf 3.
Yeah.
Let's go around the table here. Michelle? John? I'm good.
I don't know. I mean, it doesn't matter because there's a majority, but I just, I'd like to sort of, I guess there's a couple weeks to review and see what the impact will be on some interesting lots. And I do think if you have a garage in front, it could be an ADU, but.
At this point in time, I think that's unnecessarily restrictive or inappropriately restrictive. So
Okay,
I think at this point in time that I find that to be unnecessarily restrictive. So I would like to vote against that.
Okay, then as a friendly amendment or a potential alternative, I think it should say at least in the historic district or if you have a historic property, because that would make it, even if the one in front had, wood windows instead of vinyl and all those other historic requirements, it wouldn't look right. it's like having a shed in your front yard, you know? So if, I mean, if we can get a majority vote, I'm happy with Julie Wolf 3. But if Nancy is persuasive to you all, I would suggest that and we can discuss this further, obviously it's second reading. But I would prefer at least have it say as an alternative that this restriction would apply to historic properties. 'Cause I don't
Potentially,
wanna-
but again, I would like to work through some of those alternatives in my head at this point. I'm not prepared to support it at this point in time.
Okay, so with Julie Wolf 3, it's, well, no, I'm in favor of it. So we really have, it's 4-2 at this point, but, I mean, in a couple of weeks, we can think it over in the meantime for the next couple of weeks. You know,
I think we ought to put it in, and then we can look at the language, and if people can come up with some reason why there's another thing, I think we can loosen it up on second reading or whatever. But I think it'd be interesting to look at the language and the ramifications of it.
yeah, off the top of my head, I'm thinking of situations where we have
Sure.
garages in the front, some of which would be pretty much impossible to make into housing. It's where we've got cases where, you know, the house is up the slope and where somebody's cut into the hillside to put in their garage. There's a lot of those up like around Duclos and so forth. They,
There's 1 or 2 properties up there, at least 1 or 2, where the main house, there's a set of stairs from the tiny little street. It's like a very narrow one-way, it should be, in my opinion, one-way street. And then there's a bunch of stairs, and then there's the house, and then down below is the garage. Obviously, you can't take your car up I would just hate to lose that garage space to housing. Especially on a road that if you parked there, nobody could drive down the street anymore. Anyway, we could discuss it at second reading.
I don't want to create a more complicated issue, and I'm just trying to find this quickly, but I may not be able to find it quickly. You may be able to just prohibit conversion of garages to ADUs. That eliminates parking. If you're concerned about losing parking, you might be able to do that. I'd have to take a look at the statute more carefully, but
That would be a whole set.
yeah, I mean, that's the big concern. Right. I'm not, yeah.
okay. Well, okay, let's, tell you what, that's what I was gonna get at. Let's, if we could hold off here for a second on Julie Wolf 3 and then see if we have any other things that people want to put in. I'm good with what we've done so far. I mean, in general, if I had my way, I would tell the state to take their ideas and keep them to themselves and let us be ourselves. But I think it would get worse if we don't. And I can appreciate the amount of work that Planning Commission and staff and HAB have done. This is not an easy lift, and you've all done a good job. It's the state I resent. I don't know. Nancy, did you have anything else you wanted to add to this? Okay. Natalie? John? Michelle? Okay. So we've really got, okay, we have Nancy Fortune 1 and Julie Wolf 1, 2, and 3 is where we don't have consensus. We've got a 4-2 split. Mr. Parker, you said that maybe with a little research, you could figure out if parking is going to eliminate, I mean, the idea that we wouldn't let somebody convert a garage to an ADU if it interferes with parking.
Right.
So what I might suggest is we've got, with 4 proposals, 3 of them we have consensus on. The last one, maybe if you could craft some wordage and then think about and sleep on the idea of the garage conversion. Maybe there's another way to address that and then bring that back for second reading. That would be my thought. Certainly if other council members have other ideas.
I like that suggestion because that way when we deliberate at second reading, we can at least have the language and the wording in front of us, and we can have Hab and anyone else in the public also address that specific wording, whether it applies to all garages or just the garage in the front yard. At least if we have, the city attorney give us what that would look like in terms of language, then we can deliberate next time.
Okay, good. Fred, too, maybe, is there anything you have thought of that maybe we should consider before we, I mean, obviously there'll be a second hearing, but, or a second reading and a hearing, but if you've got any suggestions, just be a good time for us to hear it.
No specific suggestions, but I'm happy to work with Jeff to develop language to address these things and maybe even provide some alternatives for you.
Okay, if you could give some options, and you can see really it's the Julie Wolf 3 proposal where we've got some indecision here, and having a couple weeks to think on it might not be a bad idea. Please, yeah.
Fred, since we put the emergency ordinance into place earlier, a couple months ago, have you had any applications for ADUs?
No, we haven't.
And any comments? Have you gotten any feedback from the larger community about it at all?
No feedback about the emergency ordinance. We've had just a few inquiries. We've had a couple pre-application meetings, people interested in building an ADU, but that's all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Well, council, I guess. Okay, John, go ahead.
I move that we approve on first reading 1925, ordinance 1925, and that we direct staff to bring us wording, okay, for all of these changes that we talked about, so that we can then deal with them one by one, okay, on second reading, because I just don't want to try and read them all into the record and have the clerk try and figure that out. I'm just trying to be generous with the clerk in terms of that we have first reading done and that staff and the city attorney be directed to bring us wording changes on all four of these issues for us to look at on second reading and where they would fit in the ordinance.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Let's vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
Great, thank you.
The clerk is smiling.
Good, that's good. Okay, great.
Thank
Okay, well, thanks. Well, as I've mentioned before, I would have preferred the state not to force us to do this, but I think given the situation, staff, planning commission have, and now council have been able to come up with a reasonable response. So appreciate your work.
I want to go on the record of thanking Fred and the planning commission for hashing this out. I'm sure it was grueling. And the fact that we have so relatively few tweaks to deliberate about next time is very impressive, because you guys did a great job.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Fred. See, next item is first reading of ordinance number 2025, an ordinance vacating a portion of the Old Man's Trail right away adjacent to the property known as 10 Old Man's Trail.
Thank you. Chelsea Royston for the record. Good evening, council.
Good evening. Can you maybe hold the microphone, get the microphone a little closer to your mouth there? Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So here we have our presentation for, it is 2 items, 2 ordinances. However, we'll be doing one presentation because they're so closely interconnected. Please go to the next slide. The city is requesting to rezone the property from, which is 2 parcels that comprise the Hiawatha Gardens property, from the commercial zone to public facility zone.
The city is also requesting a partial right-of-way vacation to vacate a portion of Old Man's Trail. Next slide. Just a quick recap. I know we've talked about Hiawatha Gardens many times, but these two applications have gone through administrative review, and City Planning Commission has recommended approval of these two items. Here we have our first reading of the ordinances, and then second reading, of course, will be forthcoming should they be approved. So kind of a more global picture. Last week, the Historic Preservation Commission passed a material change of appearance certification for portions of this project. It's actually for the entire scope of the project. However, HPC only has purview over a few items. We are seeing the rezoning and right-of-way vacation here tonight. The major development plan will meet these two items at a public hearing. Again, tentatively scheduled at this point. Tomorrow evening, the City Planning Commission will hear the major development plan. And then there are administrative applications such as the grading permit and the subdivision. Next slide. Here's an outline of the scope of review for these applications as well as the forthcoming major development plan. Next slide. And next slide again. And diving into these applications, first, this is a view of the two parcels that comprise Hiawatha Gardens. You can see in this image actually where the existing right-of-way is platted and crosses a portion of the developed parking lot. Next slide. This is an image of the proposed subdivision, which again is under administrative purview. However, it does provide a clear image of the before and after. So on the left, the as platted diagram shows two parcels, the right-of-way and several lots that were part of the original plat. On the right, you can see the proposed replat, which makes Hiawatha Gardens property one whole platted lot, which is a code requirement for issuing building permits. Next slide. On the left, highlighted in blue, is the 0.08 acres that is proposed to be vacated by this application. And on the right is the 0.17 acres that is proposed to be dedicated through the major subdivision. The combination of these two actions will realign the Old Man's Trail right-of-way to encompass what is developed as Old Man's Trail. So all of those street improvements, curb gutter, those will now be in the platted right-of-way, whereas currently they are actually part of Hiawatha Gardens, part of Memorial Park, part of the right-of-way. So we're just cleaning that up. And next slide, please. We do have all of our approval criteria. It was more detailed in the Planning Commission staff report, excuse me. So we do have compliance with the comprehensive plan and any other adopted plans. There are specific goals identified in Plan Manitou 2.0, such as adequate public facilities, location of facilities, parking management, and parking supply that are supported by these applications, or excuse me, by the right-of-way vacation. We also have compliance with applicable statutory provisions, and staff finds this to be compliant with, sorry, excuse me, I'm reading the wrong part of my staff report. Okay, here we are. There are also, excuse me, jumping back to item number 1, goals identified in the transportation and more mobility master plan that are supported by the right-of-way vacation. And that is to create mobility hubs, increase demand management, enhance supply, and improve the pedestrian experience, as well as enhance street safety. Number 2, the land to be vacated is no longer necessary for public use and convenience. That is accurate in staff's view. It will more clearly delineate the boundaries between vehicle and pedestrian uses, which will create a safer environment. Number 3, the right-of-way within the subdivision is no longer needed for public transportation. Again, this small section that is being vacated is adjacent to what is developed as Old Man's Trail, and so is no longer needed for transportation purposes. Number 4, the vacation will not adversely impact the use of the right-of-way for public utility or drainage purposes. Staff finds that statement to be accurate, as utility and drainage infrastructure are currently located within the right-of-way to be dedicated. They will also be evaluated as part of the major development plan. Number 5, access to lots or properties surrounding the plat will not be adversely impacted, and staff finds that statement to be accurate. Number 6, the vacation will not adversely impact the health, safety, welfare of the general community or reduce the quality of public facilities or services. Staff finds that statement to be accurate as well. Number 7, the vacation is consistent with the purpose of the LUDC, and staff finds the purpose statement that states ensuring the connectivity of future public and private streets in relation to existing streets, as well as the vision of the adopted transportation and mobility master plan, that said streets will be will be built to adequate construction standards, and that multiple forms of mobility are contemplated. Staff finds this application to be to meet the standards set forth in code. Next slide. Moving on to the rezoning. The area highlighted in blue is proposed to be rezoned to public facilities. This area matches the boundary that would result from the proposed right-of-way vacation and accompanying right-of-way dedication and major subdivision. Next slide. So it is currently zoned commercial and is proposed to be public facilities. There are a few key differences between those two zone districts. The first is that there's no minimum lot frontage in the public facility zone. Commercial requires 50 feet of lot frontage, and that's not super applicable to the project as it's currently proposed. Second, the maximum height in public facilities is 30 feet, which is 5 feet less than is allowed in commercial. And third, residential uses are not permitted in the public facility zone. Next slide. Here again, we have approval criteria. This time it is specific to rezoning. Again, we find the same general conformance with the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. The applicable statutory provisions, staff finds this rezoning to be compliant with statutory provisions. The lots resulting from the proposed subdivision meet the dimensional standards of the public facility zone district. Number 3, whether the rezoning would adversely impact or overburden public facilities and services. The rezoning will not adversely affect public facilities as the site has been used for its intended use as a parking lot for several years. Number 4, whether the rezoning will result in a higher risk to natural hazards and geologic hazards. The rezoning will help minimize risks as the public facility zone district limits the potential use types for the property. If the property remains commercially zoned, the types of potential uses increases or stays where it is, I guess, and potentially including uses that are incompatible with the flood hazard on the site. And number 5, whether the proposed rezoning is compatible with the surrounding land uses. I think I have another slide for that. Oh, sorry, I don't. So to the north of this site is zoned general residential, and part of those properties are undeveloped currently. To the east is also commercial and developed with multifamily residential. To the south is public facility zone with the old Chase Bank, currently called a duck stop, I believe. And to the west is Memorial Park. which is zoned park. Should the city council find it appropriate to grant the rezoning and vacation of right-of-way, staff does not recommend any conditions. As a reminder, the main meat of the Hiawatha project will be coming with the major development plan. So this is really just kind of tidying things up before we set everything in place. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So I think it's fair to characterize this as kind of a housekeeping exercise. Great. Council, any questions, comments?
No, Mr. Mayor, I move we approve on first reading ordinance number 2025.
Do we have a second? Seconded by Counselor Wolf. Any further discussion? Let's vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
Great. Thanks, Chelsea. Let's move on to the second half of this, the other side of the coin. And that is first reading of ordinance number 2125, an ordinance amending the zoning map of the city of Manitou Springs, Colorado, rezoning two parcels, also known by the assessor's office as schedules numbers to a public facility zone district. Okay, Chelsea?
So I've already done the presentation for that and we just.
Do you have anything more? Or did you want to
No,
make a
thank
comment?
you.
Okay, all right. I guess we're ready to do any further discussion or take a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve ordinance number 2125.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Second by Counselor Wolf. Any further discussion? Let's vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Council, I'll ask if anyone wants to take a quick break here before we move on, or do you want to push through? Well, we have two things, I think, but I think we can be fairly quickly. Okay, let's move on then. First reading of ordinance number 2225, an ordinance of the city of Manitou Springs, Colorado, amending the Manitou Springs Municipal Code to allow digital publication of certain publication notices. And of course, this was covered in the council packet. The city clerk had a family emergency and is not able to be here. Denise, do you want to speak to this, or Jeff?
I'm happy to address it if you'd like.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not that complicated, but I know the city had asked me to take a look at your municipal code and all the publication requirements that were to be in a newspaper of general circulation. The cost of that have been relatively expensive for the city over time. And so I was asked to take a look and see which publication requirements could the city change from being in a newspaper to just digitally published on the city's website. And the basic rule is anything that isn't required by state law or that is a matter of local concern, even if it is required by state law, the city can change to digital publication. So we went through your entire municipal code and basically made the revisions to the sections of your code that we believe you can change to just be digital only. And a few provisions you still have to keep as published in a paper of general circulation. So the ordinance does that. I could walk through each one of them, but there's quite a few. And so the ordinance basically changes from newspaper to digital for everything we believe you're legally allowed to do that for. And then retains the other ones that you need to still publish in a newspaper. Happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you. Council members, do you have any questions? Nancy, please.
Do we have any sense of the use of like the front window for people? I see people stopping by there all the time looking at and I know we can still post it there, but it's no longer, according to our ordinance, it's no longer required to post there, as well as the notices in the paper and so on. Do we have any sense of the use? Because, on the surface, this is great, but I do worry about people if they use newspapers or other ways of obtaining information to get this information.
So the front is used some, I can't say that, 50 people come by. We see one or two once in a while that stop by. I think what we plan to do is still post at Wichita and the front. However, what we struggle with is if there's another COVID or there's something like this allows us to make sure that we stay within our regulations. And it also, with the bulletin, not sure if it's here today, not, the Gazette is fairly expensive, and we don't know how many people order the Gazette from Manitou. So we'll still post as much as we can in the front and also at the Wichita parking lot. But this doesn't require it. We'll just do it as necessary.
Yeah, go ahead, Julie.
It doesn't sound very expensive or onerous if we were to require ourselves to post at the front window in addition to the digital posting. Why don't we do both? As I understand Denise is saying, oh, we already do it usually, but it would take, you have to print one or two pieces of paper and you get some tape and you put it on the window. I like that idea. And I don't see why, maybe I'm missing something, but is there any downside to mandating that we also post it publicly on paper in the front window of City Hall?
I think the bigger concern is in the newspaper, the legal postings.
Oh, I don't want to do that anymore. It's too expensive with the Gazette. But I'm
It's
just wondering, in
15K,
addition
so-
to this proposed ordinance, for it to be posted on our website, if we also had a sentence that said, it'll also be posted in the window on a piece of paper.
I believe at the first meeting of the year, we declare how we're going to post our public notices. So I think that, that first January meeting, we say, in the past, we'll push it. In the past, we've said we'll publish it in the local newspaper and we'll post it in a couple places. So I think if we do that, we do that every year anyway. It would seem like that would get to your point. We would still be
Well, if we're
posting. paper.
changing it now to say it can be on the website, we can also say, just for the convenience in January, to maybe readopt the same thing and in the window. Because I like Nancy's idea.
Okay.
My concern with, there's different posting requirements for different types of applications and liquor licenses and like for selling property and all that. And so I think that the official posting place in your January notice is for like your agendas. It's not setting the requirements for all these specific types of postings. And so my one concern with having it on a requirement that's on your front window is that, if you don't do it and you miss it, you're going to end up having an issue with the procedure being done right. And then you have to, so I just got worried about mandating it, given that the city would be posting most important notices up there anyways. But it's up to you if you want to require it. I just don't like to set you up to miss something.
Well, and actually, now that you said that, what if we don't have enough room in the window?
There's quite a few notices.
I know.
Come out, and some have to be up there for 14 days and that kind of stuff. All of a sudden, you don't really see them because there's so many. That was one of the concerns.
Any further discussion on this? Guess we're ready for a motion. Well, I'll move adoption of ordinance number 2225, amending Manitou Springs Municipal Code to allow digital publication of certain publication notices.
Second.
Okay, we've seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion? Let's vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we're going to go back to item F2. This is approval of a general services agreement with Front Range Arborists LLC for Black Canyon Open Space Fire Mitigation. We've got Dave Conley from the Open Space Committee and Lieutenant Mike Woolley from the Fire Department. Gentlemen, thanks for your patience in waiting. We appreciate it. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Yeah. Okay. Dave, do you want to kick off?
Sure. One of the responsibilities of the open space. committee is,
And Dave,
take,
we all know you, but for the record, we can
Sorry.
get your name and address,
Thank you.
please.
when you said hello, that was my cue. David Conley, 335 Rockledge Lane, Manitou Springs, currently chair of the Open Space Advisory Committee. One of our responsibilities is to take care of the open space properties. This is focused on the Black Canyon open space. Council approved the master plan in February. One of the elements of that plan is to address fire mitigation. The plan is to do that, and we've been working with the fire department, with Lieutenant Mike Willie for about 5 months on this, maybe, to do the fire mitigation before the trail construction begins. The master plan outlines the trail construction and where it's going to be. And then Lieutenant Willie designed the fire mitigation plan, so I should let you take that from there.
So I worked with some colleagues from Colorado Springs and Colorado Springs Utilities to come up with a scope of work that Front Range arborists will have to follow. And it is a 50% reduction of fuels in the area, which sounds enormous, but it's really not in perspective. The work will create a beautiful mosaic in that area. It will all be handwork, and then they'll take in a track chipper and chip their handwork because it has to go somewhere. And the deepest they can lay the chipping is 4 inches, which is pretty standard for fire mitigation. And then vegetation grows through that pretty quickly after it's done. So
The through the Parks Department, Jillian, no, it was through your department, requested bids and received, I can't recall if it was 1 bid or 2.
we reached out to 4 contractors. We received 2 bids. One of the contractors never got me a bid in time because they just took on 2 huge other contracts, mitigation work in Colorado Springs. And then one didn't want to bid it because this is a very tough project to do.
The bid came in at 150,000, and OSEC has the funds to do this, or to recommend that council approve the expenditure of the funds to do this. It is more expensive than the Deer Park fire mitigation, because as Lieutenant Willie explains, it's access and the steepness of the slopes. The crews will have to walk up onto the property. They will not be able to get their trucks up onto the property. They are going to bring up their track mounted chipping machine, and build, we'll call it a temporary, I don't want to call it a road, I want to call it access. And we actually walked the property today with the contractor. Greg Shields was their representative. And my concern was to make sure they were sensitive to the trail alignment that's been proposed in the master plan. And it was clear from talking to Greg Shields that they're used to that. They're used to working where trails are already in place, which is what the case is at Black Canyon. Preserving, certain landscape elements, tree elements, so that we don't end up tearing up an open space and then trying to build trails and realize, well, gee, what happened here? So I don't think that's going to happen. I'm real confident of that after walking it with Mr. Shields today and with Lieutenant Willie. I think that's all the information we have to offer on that, unless there are questions.
There may be questions. Mr. Shady, you were the one who asked to have this pulled off the consent calendar, so perhaps you have a concern or a question?
I was just curious in terms of, I was looking at the fire department's fire hazard map, and I just don't see how this area is a priority for this amount of money being spent in this area, given some of the other areas that we own that are cherry red. Meaning
You
that
want to hold up your map there, John?
the map shows other areas. This area here, according to our own analysis, is a low-risk area.
I took everything into consideration with us opening it up to the public. I determined that was probably the best alternative to get some mitigation going in to Manitou. If we're going to open this up to the public, there's going to be more people in there. And it may say it's light to being a fire hazard, but there's nowhere in Manitou that's light to fire hazard.
Well, I guess I would rather have these funds used in some of the areas in which our own science is saying are risk areas, is my point. This is an area here, and I called the Weather Service, and they said what the standard prevailing winds were in Manitou were from the southwest, south, and whatnot. And in my opinion, if there was a fire that started in this open space, and I'm not saying that there isn't mitigation. I mean, we have thousands of acres that need to be mitigated. Okay, I'm not disputing that. I'm just disputing the fact that we're spending this amount of money at this particular location when I think that we would have a better bang for our buck given our own map in terms of spending it somewhere else.
Yeah, Nancy, please.
Are the red areas also open space? So there's zoned open space?
I pulled up my parcel map with all the open space stuff, and there's plenty of stuff we own, okay, that needs mitigation that is cherry red according to this map. And according to this map, much of this area isn't even marked red according to our own mapping.
Another point to this mitigation project is Colorado Springs Fire just mitigated just to the north of that area. So when you're mitigating, the more area you can mitigate. So they just mitigated to the north of there. That's even more bang to the buck because now we're creating that area to be even bigger, if that makes sense.
And I totally understand that. I'm just talking about the risk to our own community, which is that we already have mitigation that has happened up there. And in fact, our own map shows it as blue. Okay. If a fire would start here, okay, it would have to either move if the prevailing winds were not what they were, clear across US 24, which is a huge area that's protecting to us. And very rapidly, okay, if a fire started in this area, it is in the city of Colorado Springs. So, and in uninhabited areas. So I'm just questioning the fact this is a huge chunk of open space money. There's discretionary money of our own as well as what, $9,000 from the fire department? Is that correct?
Yes.
So I'm just questioning the process in which suddenly this area ended up getting targeted for essentially the only fire mitigation that I know of that we will do in the next year.
Question. Just a quick second, Julie. Mr. Conley, I believe OSAC maintains a list of projects and your criteria for different parcels. I don't know if that comes into play here.
I'm not aware, well, of any other list of priorities for fire mitigation other than the map that Councilman Shady was referring to.
Okay.
The committee has not done a separate, ranking, if you will. But Councilman Shady, I believe is correct that this is the first fire mitigation project of any size done by OSAC. There has been some fire mitigation on some of the trail corridors. Those were pretty limited. But in terms of contracting, this is the first one I'm aware of, but I've only been chair for 4 or 5 months and on the committee for a year and a half.
Thank you. Julie?
Oh, I just wanted to say that I received a call from a resident who basically mirrored what Counselor Shada just said. He said there are, I guess the so-called cherry red areas are the ones that our own fire department has identified as being high risk or the highest risk. And that we have highest risk open space areas elsewhere that really should be addressed before we spend money on a low risk fire area. And I'm not a fire mitigation expert, but that made a heck of a lot of sense to me. And one thing that was said is this, the city-owned property adjacent to Miramont Castle is so overgrown you can't walk through it, Montcalm Street. And obviously there are others on this map, quite a few other areas on the map that have been identified by our own police force as being the highest risk. So I agreed with that resident who notified me, and I would be interested in putting this in a work session so that we could have a more robust discussion to determine if in fact there are higher risk areas. Given that we don't have enough money to address every area, we might as well address the highest risk areas. I mean, that's just common sense to me. Before we spend money on a medium or low risk area. And so I wondered, I'd be in favor of putting this off to a work session so that we could ask OSAC to explore the high risk areas on the map that have been identified by our own fire department that are open space areas, and to see if that might make more sense.
Let me ask this, gentlemen, if we were to postpone this or delay it, does that make money go away? Are the funds, do they need to be, are they tied to this particular location, or do we have a use by date or something?
No, these funds are all in the, I refer to as OSAC reserves. These have been carried forward from year to year as the sales tax and the mill levy funding monies have not been spent. There are no grant monies, I don't think, involved, so there's no deadline in that regard. So I think the answer is a no to the concerns that you're raising, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And, well, I mean, we've got concerns about opening this up to the public. That's the safety concern that you've expressed, Mike. Are there other hardships if we were to delay this? Or I know it's frustrating to sometimes have your projects delayed, but
no, other than the 9,000 that was coming from our mitigation budget. But that was just to meet the other side of the budget, but that was it.
well,
I have,
yeah, Nancy, please.
yeah, the only timeline, I think, is you don't want to do mitigation during nesting season and mating season. So wildlife would be a consideration of your time frame. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, good point. Other comments?
I just don't know. I'm not familiar with our upcoming agenda items. Do we have room to address this in the near future at a work session?
I will look to Denise for a little direction on that.
We're pretty full, but what you might do is if you don't approve this, is just send it back to OSAC and come back to us with suggestions, or to you, not us, and have them do their internal work of what they think would be the best, and then have them bring that back to you.
Yeah, that's a good idea. They probably already looked at this pretty closely, and you could collaborate closely with the fire department. Well, council, let's go around the table and see what take the temperature on this. I guess the flavor is we could approve this tonight as requested. We could ask for a recommendation back from OSAC and the fire department for, probably maybe looking at addressing a higher risk area. On the other hand, we've got the public going in there. So what's the question? I mean, I'm sorry, the question is, what's best? So, Nancy, I guess I'll start with you.
Sure. Yeah, I'm actually for delaying this. And I do have a couple of other questions too. Historically, the OSAC has used that reserve to purchase open space. So that's no longer a priority, I assume.
No, that's not correct. I refer to it as a reserve. They're unused funds. Each year,
Right.
as you know, the funds accumulate if they're not spent. The expenditures have been fairly lean in the last couple of years. And there hasn't been an acquisition since the toe of the Black Canyon open space, the bottom of it.
Right.
That was 110,000.
So I would just, and I'm definitely for fire mitigation. Oh God, I had another point I wanted to make, which if I think of it, I'll tell you, but that I just want to confirm because I know that the OSAC had historically rolled over the funds in the case there was an opportunity to purchase land. And it sounds like now you're using a large percentage of those funds to do fire mitigation, which I'm not saying is a bad thing to do. I'm just curious as to that change in your. Exactly. Yeah. Thanks.
I guess I'd like
Did-
to make,
I'm going around the table here.
I'm sorry.
John, okay, so Nancy, you're in favor of delaying, and I guess by that way, it means asking them to come back with some other alternative.
Yes, I would like OSAC to come back with some proposals.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Natalie, please.
Yeah, I'm comfortable delaying, and I'd also like OSAC to come back with some ideas based on this
Okay, thank you.
conversation.
John?
Yes, I guess I'd like to be more specific. I guess I'd like us to, OSAC and the fire department, to come back with a fire mitigation plan in which is immediately around parcels 74 053 14 023. And those are the parcels, okay, that are in our own maps, okay, which are up there above Midland and Uinta and Chipeta and High Roads. And that we look at those because to me, something that starts there is going to come right on down in the center of town. And it's not going to be long before City Hall's burned down in terms of with a southeast prevailing wind. And so I guess I think we ought to use the science that we have, pick a cherry red area, okay, and begin developing a plan, whether it uses OSAC money or not, that we begin this process of getting serious about how we're going to mitigate these cherry red areas, because I can tell you, the insurance companies are downloading this, okay? All right, and it's affecting everybody's rates. And the fact that the mitigation has already happened up here in the Black Canyon open space, that it's now blue, okay? If you were an adjoining property up there, you know, you're going to probably get approved for insurance. And these people down in here that are below Red Mountain, I know many of them in which are getting denied for homeowners insurance because of our own maps.
That's everybody in El Paso County, and those aren't our maps. Those are the state of Colorado
Well,
maps.
I understand that, but I'm just saying they're right on our website. All you have to do is just say Manitou Springs fire map, and this comes right up on our webpage. And my point is, we need to, like the mayor said earlier, start to figure out how we get serious about this thing here and start spending monies where it really makes a difference. Thank you.
I'll put you down as being in favor of a delay.
Yes.
Could I,
Okay.
John, I'm sorry, I thought the other point I wanted to make.
Please.
I still support delaying and having OSAC come back to us in the fire department, but I would also ask, in part of your recommendations is to come back because there's typically grant dollars, and I would always like to take advantage of grant dollars for things like this, if at all possible. If at all possible, I'm not saying I'm wedded to that, but there are often grant dollars available. And also, if there are experienced and less expensive contractors, such as the Mile High Youth Corps has often done mitigation work for us, and they're, I believe, considerably less expensive than this contractor. And I'm not saying that they're better necessarily. I'm just saying that I think it'd be important to look at other options. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Michelle?
I'm fine with OSAC coming back. Thank you.
Okay, Julie?
I am too, and I would like to mirror what Counselor Shada said. They can come back with other things as well, but at a minimum, I'd really like them to come back with those specific properties since they are so crucial to the preservation of our town. And if they want to come back with those plus a couple more, that's fine with me, but I would hope that those, I would suggest that those be at a minimum reviewed and analyzed for us so that we can advise which we want to mitigate. And I also like the idea, and I realize it's not before us tonight, of our, once we make that decision about where this money is going to be used, I would like us also to see if we can figure out what it will cost to mitigate the other red high-risk areas so that we can protect our town. We've all said for years how frightened we are of fire as being the biggest hazard to the safety and welfare of our town. And we've got the reserves right now. And I think it has to be really high priority. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And excuse me here, John, the map you showed there's the yellow, is that publicly owned property? Okay, all right.
So I just named that parcel number, which is 14023, which is right in the center of a whole bunch of open space. So we own it and it is our problem. And it is cherry red according to this map. And it seems like to me, we ought to be getting to the business of mitigating our own properties and then leaning as much as possible on these other surrounding property owners to do mitigation. But I mean, this is stuff we own and this is stuff we're responsible for. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Clearly the consensus is to request that that OSAC and the fire department collaborate again and maybe come back with a list of recommended properties that we could get the most bang for the buck, to reduce the risk as much as possible. So, gentlemen, thank you. Sorry to keep you late.
Vote on that?
Yeah.
I guess I move that we take 2F in that we not approve this agreement and that we direct staff in the fire department and OSAC to come back with other fire mitigation plans.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Councilor Wolf. Any further discussion? Let's vote.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, great, thank you. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Okay. Let's see, I believe we've covered everything we were going to. So receive or act on council correspondence. Does anybody have anything? I guess Nancy, we'll just come around the.
Okay, I had a question on if the Zoom of the community meeting for, or if there's a recording of the community meeting on the 2A, that when that proposal went forward, there's no recording of that meeting? Bummer. Okay, thank you. And also I had a concern about, I saw a posting from Julie on Facebook that I believe was inaccurate. And that concerned me because it was really representing council, and it said that, and I don't think that we ever voted to approve 100 hours of free parking for residents.
No, we didn't.
I've heard it repeatedly that once you get your 50 hours used up, which no one has ever done, you can go back and ask for another 50. If that's not correct, then that's not correct. But I could have sworn I heard that here in council.
I believe several times we've.
Remember also there was an aside note that said no one's ever even gotten to the 50-yard, the 50 hours yet, at least most recent staff report. But that I thought there was, if it wasn't a vote, then it was consensus that if you do use up your 50, you can get 50 more.
What I recall was that you get your 50 hours, and then if you use those up, you can go down and buy more time at a discount rate, like something like 75 cents an hour.
Oh, I don't even remember that.
I think that was
For the
something that
discount.
Juan Alvarez briefed us a long time ago.
Was it a brainstorming idea or was it like an ordinance?
No,
Really,
that was
I think
policy.
I will confess that I said that, yes, there's 50 hours. I believe I asked staff and they said nobody had used all 50. And I said, as long as we're printing money, which is basically what this parking thing is, my comment is, it would seem like to me, we could easily make it 100 hours if it was a problem. So maybe that's why you were thinking it was policy when it was sort of kind of my wild suggestion. Excuse me.
My point in all of this is that I think when we as council members post something on Facebook in response, specifically when they're asking the council to respond, we've got to be so very careful. And I know I personally used to post, comments on Facebook, and I no longer do because I would rather just direct them to call staff and ask the question, or direct them to call, or to go to our website. But I personally am very hesitant to answer or address in the comments on Facebook anything, because it can get us into big trouble.
I appreciate that. However, I have to also say, and this isn't in defense of my error, but I've had so many people, like a surprising number of people, tell me, oh my goodness, I didn't know I could get free parking in Manitou. And it all came up because when we started discussing Fields Park and other parking fees going up, and all these local residents responded on Facebook, how can I afford that? I'm not gonna, freaking out. And so there were so many people who called me and Facebooked me and emailed me and said, and even walking on the street, I never knew that. When did that happen? I said, it's been in place for years. I don't even remember. Well, why doesn't the city tell us? I'm like, well, if you don't watch the meetings and if it doesn't happen to be covered in the bulletin, which is even more thinned out now, I guess, if you don't go out of your way to stay informed, you don't know. But apparently a lot of people didn't know that, and probably a lot of people still don't know that. So I'm very pleased that the city administrator report is now going to go out, the twice a month report on Facebook, so that this kind of thing, even though to us it sounds like old news, this kind of stuff needs to be advertised because folks just don't know. But thank you, Nancy, for correcting me.
Okay, thank you. Did you have anything else, Nancy? Okay, good. Thank you. Natalie?
I just wanted to invite everyone to St. Andrew's Community Center has a fundraiser on Saturday. Anyone who plays arcade games from 11 to 6 p.m., those proceeds will go to helping to launch that community center. And also, we are in the process of scheduling a community meeting for the community center on November 11th. And so details are coming regarding that, but 2 opportunities to get involved in the next few months.
Great, thank you. And council members, I believe it was yesterday, I sent out an email. Typically, I think you all remember that we have had historically a Saturday work session to go over the budget in early October. Given the fact that we won't know we'll have a better idea of our financial situation after the election. I'd like to do a day-long financial retreat on November the 22nd. That would be from 9 to 2. Hopefully we'll be done by 2. But I wanted to see if that date would work for you. That's the Saturday before Thanksgiving. We would be not having a meeting the Tuesday of Thanksgiving week. Also, I anticipate that we will not have meetings on November the 4th, which is Election Day, or November the 11th, which is Veterans Day. That things could change depending on our needs. But so if you have any problems with that date, please let me know. And if not, we'll plan on having the meeting. It'll be here on the 22nd. Also, this weekend is Indigenous Peoples Day weekend. Sunday, there will be a celebration and potluck here in City Hall, starting at noon. There's going to be so on Saturday, there'll be a storyteller from noon to 3 o'clock over at the Manitou Heritage Center. So it should be interesting. The Ute and the Lakota are going to have speakers, and all. I guess Lakota's going to have a couple speakers. Anyway, it should be fun. Thank you. John, anything? Michelle, Julie?
No, I only the response, feedback that I got regarding the fire mitigation location selection that I already mentioned earlier. That was the only communication I've had with the public.
Okay.
Oh, I do want to know though, what's happening with our, with Becca and the,
The audit's in process.
have
We
we been found to be in violation and we have to redo the whole audit? I mean,
No. They're just wondering when we're get it to them, and we,
do we have an estimated date when it'll be reviewed by us?
think we're looking at mid-October. Excuse me, you answer that, please.
Yeah, I want to just talk that this is not, many cities are late. We happen to be late due to personnel and trying to get everything done. You got that notice today from the state. Everything right now is at the auditors, and now we're waiting for the auditors. They're doing mini audits, so we're trying to push them as much as possible, but we hope to have it done by the end of October, but it's really now at the auditor's hands to get that done and to bring it back to you for a final findings. So we'll wait and see where they are. They're sending us a few questions. We're getting it to them as we can, and then they're trying to get it through the process, but it does take some time.
Okay, thank you.
We would meet now twice if we do them.
Twice, we would have that, the 22nd and then the Tuesday before, which I believe is the 18th. So we would have, and that would be a regular meeting, and we have our budget. So that would be the plan. Something I didn't mention too, and very unusual. And during our break earlier, I found out that Denise's daughter in Omaha was injured in a car accident, and she stayed in the saddle here at City Council and took care of that. We hope your daughter is in getting good care, and that she'll recover quickly, and that the injuries are hopefully not that they're just minor. So thanks for having the fortitude to stick with us. We were able to knock out some important work tonight.
Thank you. That was very kind. Just a quick update that I'd like to share is Creek Walk. I know there are some questions. Are we going to have trees? What's happening? As you know, through that process, there are trees and pollinator gardens. So there are going to be bump outs, and that was used to be calming, traffic calming. So know that it looks like right now there may not be there, but it's coming in time. So I just want to make sure everybody has that information. And then next week we'll be doing that Ruxton repair and get that water line done. And we're doing it in partnership with the owner of that property. So we only have to do it once to close that road. And we'll be getting information out about that. Regarding the free parking, every year we put out lots of stuff out about that. We put it on Facebook. We put out in everything that we can. We've done articles in the paper, but I think it just takes time, and what time that takes, when somebody moves here and they haven't seen it, they may not know about it that year, but we'll continue to promote that. So thank you for the feedback. Friday, we will have the rough draft, and this is a draft budget. So please know that this isn't anything final. It's just a draft budget that's required for the state that we give it to you by October 15th. We know that there are going to be lots of changes depending on the election. So draft budget only. We'll have that ready for you on Friday. Thank you. And thanks for this evening. It was a long night. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Well, we've come to the end of the evening, so I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second? Okay. Happy second. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.